Chapter 413. This was a room on the top floor of Fairy Tale. The size of the room wasn't very large, only about the size of a normal family's room. The furniture inside was unusually neat. Not only was there a wardrobe, a hanger, a desk, and a bed, there was even a small square table on the floor. The surroundings were paved with white stone tiles, and the lighting was excellent. There was also a glass door leading to the outside, and outside was a small balcony. Under Lasana's lead, Noah came to the room. After looking around the room, he said to Lisana, who was looking at him with a smile, with great satisfaction. "Not bad, it's much better than the previous one." Previously, in Fairy Tale, Noah's room not only had walls and floors made of wood, even the furniture was only equipped with a wardrobe, a hanger, and a bed. It couldn't be compared to this room at all. Of course, Noah had a separate house in the world of Pitch Black Bullet, and under Lilith's influence, the dormitory in Absolute Dual Blades was transformed into a luxurious suite. Even in the world of Night of the Magi, he lived in a mansion. Compared to those, this room naturally couldn't be compared. However, as a residence that he didn't know if he could live in for long periods of time, Noah was already very satisfied to have this kind of scale. Compared to Noah, Lisana felt that it wasn't enough. "Is this really okay?" Lisana said with some regret. "It's rare for the guild to be rebuilt, Brother Noah. Actually, you can also ask for a bigger room. The guild leader definitely won't reject your request." "What do I need such a big room for?" Noah came in front of Lisana and pinched her cute little nose. "As long as it's comfortable." "Don't pinch, what if you break it?" Lisana first rebuked Noah's hand, then angrily glared at Noah. "It's good to decorate it a bit more luxuriously, wouldn't that make it more comfortable?" Hearing this, Noah bitterly smiled. Looking at the rebuking Lisana, he felt more or less complicated. The reason why Noah didn't ask for a luxurious room was because he didn't know if he could live in it for long periods of time. As the one and only chosen by the world, the so-called beloved, Noah could travel between different worlds. Although he wanted to stay in Fairy Tale and stay in his home, when he thought of those broken feathers in between worlds, Noah could not sit still. Those worlds that were like children yearning for Noah's restoration made Noah unable to sit idly by. Therefore, Noah might not be able to stay in this world for a long time. Soon, he would have to go out and travel to various worlds again. Since he couldn't stay in Fairy Tale for long periods of time, wouldn't asking for a room that was too big be a burden to Mira and Lisana? After all, once Noah left, given how much Mira and Lisana loved Noah, they would definitely clean his room every day like before. That way, Noah would rather have his room be smaller so that Mira and Lisana wouldn't have to work too hard. Noah had wanted to say this to Lisana, but when he thought of how anxious and worried the two sisters had been when he asked them to leave the Paradise Tower, Noah felt as if his chest was blocked. No matter what, he had an indescribable feeling. This made Noah realize something. It was different from before. Now, not only did he have a family, he also had a lover. If Shang Tai left, Mira and Lisana would definitely send off their other halves with smiles like two loyal and virtuous wives while staying at home and worrying about Noah, who was away from home and waiting for Noah's return all the time. When he thought of this, Noah's heart ached, and he had the urge to not leave. Lisana seemed to have noticed that something was wrong with Noah, so she asked suspiciously. "Big brother Noah, what's wrong with you?" Lisana. Under the control of an indescribable emotion, Noah scratched his cheeks, hesitated for a while, and tentatively asked such a question. "Can I ask you a question?" Hearing this, not only did Lisana not reveal a look of doubt, she instead stared at Noah's deep black eyes, as if she wanted to see through Noah's heart, her gaze full of aggression. Under the gaze of Lasana's unusually aggressive gaze, Noah couldn't help but turn his head away. That was a natural reaction caused by guilt. Seeing Noah's appearance, Lisana suddenly smiled, and her smile was exceptionally gentle like Myra's. Let me guess what Big Brother Noah wants to ask. Saying such a sentence, Lisanna playfully smiled. Big Brother Noah must want to ask me, if you need to leave for a period of time like before, what will Sister Mira and I think, right? You. Noah couldn't help but be stunned. You know. I don't dare to say that I can definitely guess what you are thinking, but I am definitely the most likely person to guess it among all the people you know. Lisanna put her hands behind her back, bent forward, and met Noah's gaze, her eyes as gentle as water. Don't underestimate me and Sister Mira, we are the people closest to you in this world. The people closest to me in this world. Noah was slightly stunned. Isn't that the case? Lisanna met Noah's gaze with a blissful smile. After all, Big Sister Mira and I have slept on the same bed and pillow with you before. This is the so-called people who share a pillow. As pillow companions, how can I not notice that the person closest to me on the other side has something on his mind? Lisanna revealed a sly look. That's why, no matter how well someone conceals it, they will eventually be discovered. That's the principle, Big Brother Noah. What are you talking about? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Only then did Lisanna put away her sly and playful look and smile at Noah with a hint of reluctance. Big Brother Noah, actually, Sister Mira and I have talked about the same thing in private, and we have already come to a conclusion. After saying that, Lisanna took a step forward and leaned into Noah's embrace. She greedily took in a breath and let the familiar smell of Noah waft into her nose. Then, an unprecedentedly gentle voice sounded in Noah's ears. We know that Big Brother Noah is very impressive, more impressive than your grandfather, President Makarov, more impressive than your brother, Laxus, more impressive than Kildas, more impressive than Mishgang, more impressive than Alusha, more impressive than Naz, and more impressive than Gray. With such an impressive Big Brother Noah, you will definitely have a lot of hard work to complete. This is what Sister Mira said, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility, Lisanna said with a hint of nostalgia. That's why, Big Brother Noah, Sister Mira and I don't want to be a burden to you. Do whatever you want to do. No matter how long it takes, Sister Mira and I will be here waiting for you to come back. Always, always. After saying that, she raised her head, and her eyes, which were rippling with strange emotions, met Noah's eyes. Big Brother Noah, don't forget that we're still waiting for you here. No matter how far you go, you have to come back. Every single word of hers pierced into the depths of Noah's heart in the most direct way, causing Noah's pity for the two of them to erupt in an instant. At that moment, Noah hugged her tightly with almost all of his strength. Ugh! Lisanna let out a muffled gasp, but didn't resist at all as she endured Noah's strength. She let out a sound of happiness and suffering. Big Brother Noah, you're using too much strength. Not only did that not make Noah relax, he even increased his strength. Driven by the pity in his heart, he couldn't hold himself back and carried her towards the bed. Wait! Wait! Big Brother Noah! What are you doing? Don't! It's still daytime, ugh. Not long after, her shy voice echoed in the newly constructed room as pieces of clothing fell to the ground. A short while later, a series of even more embarrassing panting and crisp knocking sounds could be heard, turning the day into a pink one. Chapter 4:14. About 4 to 5 hours later, Noah came down from upstairs with a refreshed expression and returned to the hall on the first floor of Fairy Tale. Perhaps it was because the venue had been expanded, but in the vast hall on the first floor, the noise that used to resound in Fairy Tale was still there, but it was not as dense as before. For the time being, it could be considered a decent gathering place. Of course, the main reason was that the disbanding of the council had caused the dark guilds and magic orders that were originally hiding in the dark to emerge one after another in the magic world. This caused many powerful magic shooters in the guild to go out and carry out annihilation missions, causing the guild to lose a lot of people. Otherwise, even if it had been expanded, the noise in the guild would definitely not be to this extent on normal days. At this time, Naz and Gray had already gone out on annihilation missions, and even Gadjalu had been chased out by Makarov to annihilate a magic order. The core strength of the guild was basically all mobilized. Hence, in the current fairy tale, there was only a group of sorcerers with decent strength left. However, they were not strong enough to face an entire guild and an entire order of sorcerers alone. Alusha seemed to have returned to her residence to conserve energy and prepare to participate in the punitive expedition that was very likely to appear with some powerful dark guilds and magic orders. Even Mira put down her waitress-like job and returned home to make some preparations in case she really needed to go out on a mission. It was precisely because of the existence of these two strongest female magic shooters in Fairy Tail that Fairy Tail would not fall into the predicament of not being able to send out S-rank magic shooters in the future. After all, Kildas was traveling outside and had not returned until now. Mishgang was also mysterious and did not know if he would return to the guild. Laxus was still in his rebellious period and could not be ordered at all. If it were not for Mira and Alusha, when those truly powerful dark guilds and magic orders appeared, Fairy Tail would definitely be laughed at by the other guilds if they could not send out a powerful person to deal with them. Makarov would also lose a lot of face. Noah couldn't help but sigh. Who would have thought that in the end, the fairy tale needed the support of two girls? If he did not know the situation of Kildas, Mishgang, and Laxus, Makarov would have cried himself to death. As for Noah, although he was powerful and was even evaluated by Makarov to be able to compete with Kildas for the throne of the strongest magic shooter in Fairy Tail, to outsiders, Noah was just an ordinary member, not even an S-rank magic shooter. Under such circumstances, Makarov really wouldn't send Noah on an annihilation mission if it wasn't absolutely necessary. He didn't want others to find an opportunity to make fun of Fairy Tail, saying that they couldn't even send an S-rank magic shooter and could only send an ordinary member. This was a matter of face. It had nothing to do with strength. Therefore, even if they knew that Noah had a golden beast that could kill one of the 10 great Saint Magi, those who should make fun of him would still make fun of him. It seems that I have to participate in the next S-rank magic shooter advancement test. Noah muttered to himself. Even if it's for the sake of Fairy Tail's reputation. Noah was a member of his own family and knew that although Fairy Tail was known as the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom, there were many internal problems. Not to mention other problems, just the issue of succession was enough to give Makarov a headache. Although Kildas had the strength of a 10 great saint, he was someone who couldn't sit still. His heart couldn't settle in one place, so the position of guild leader really didn't suit him. Mishgang was also a person who couldn't be seen in public. Even if Makarov wanted to give him the position of guild leader, he wouldn't accept it. Needless to say, Laxus had a twisted mind. If he inherited the guild, it would definitely cause Fairy Tail to fall apart. As for Mira, because she had been assisting Makarov for a long time, she was quite familiar with the position of guild leader. However, she didn't have the intention to inherit the position. Compared to the guild leader, Mira was actually more suitable to be an assistant. On the other hand, Alusha's leadership was passable, her strength was passable, her thinking was meticulous, and her methods were exceptional. She was definitely the best choice for guild leader. Unfortunately, Alusha sometimes made mistakes. Even if she didn't drop the ball at critical moments, she was still a troublemaker. This made Makarov very hesitant. Fortunately, this problem had been solved. Because of Noah's return, Makarov saw hope. If it was before, he might have hesitated to let Noah become the guild leader. After all, Noah also had many areas where he wasn't mature. But after traveling through several worlds, especially the experience in the world of a black bullet, Noah had already been reborn. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to lead another Fairy Tail. Makarov already had the intention to pass the position to Noah. This was something that everyone in Fairy Tail could vaguely see the trend of. Noah naturally knew about this matter and also had the idea of sharing the burden with his grandfather. Therefore, even now, he had begun to consider various matters in fairy tale. If grandfather makes me the guild leader, and the guild leader is a guy who isn't even an S-rank magic shooter, many guilds who are eyeing fairy tale covetously will definitely take the opportunity to cause trouble. Noah suddenly smiled. Of course, I won't let the guild leader of fairy tale be a mere S-rank magic shooter. One of the 10 great holy magi. This was the highest honor that a magic shooter could obtain in the magic world. It was precisely because the guild's leader was one of the 10 great saint magicians, fairy tale, and phantom lord, that the guild's fame had spread far and wide. The reason why fairy tale and phantom lord could compete for the position of the #1 guild in the Fiori kingdom was not only because of the guild's strength, but also because the guild leader was one of the 10 great holy magi, enough to intimidate everyone. This could be seen from the fact that the moment Joseph died, the phantom lord was disintegrated by someone else. Noah had long since decided that since he wanted to inherit fairy tale, he had to at least obtain the title of one of the 10 great holy magi so that the reputation of fairy tale would still resound throughout the Fiori kingdom like before. This was definitely not ambition. Because with Noah's strength, it was completely possible for him to do so. Let's see if the guys in the newly formed council will give me face or not. Leaving this sentence, Noah smiled faintly and went downstairs. However, Noah quickly stopped in his tracks and cast his gaze towards a corner of the guild. There, Julian, who had just joined fairy tale not long ago, sat at the table and looked at the guild members who were chatting excitedly around him. He looked like he really wanted to join, but he was very hesitant. This was of course. After all, Julian was previously a member of the opposing guild of fairy tale, so it was natural for her to be worried about being ostracized. This reminded Noah of Alusha who sat in the corner like he did in the past, and he could not help but walk over. On the other side, Julian was still secretly looking around, as if attracted by the commotion around her. Just as she was hesitating whether she should join in, a voice sounded from behind her. "What's wrong? Don't you want to chat with your companions?" Julian had not heard this voice many times, but it was so familiar that it made her heart skip a beat. At that moment, Julian stiffened her head and slowly turned around. When she saw Noah's familiar face, her pair of cute eyes widened, and even her delicate body trembled. Her mouth opened and closed like a goldfish, and she was stunned for a moment. Noah couldn't help but feel amused. This girl seemed to be quite interesting. Chapter 4:15. No, Lord Noah. Under Noah's gaze, Julianne jumped up from her seat in an exaggerated manner and subconsciously distanced herself from Noah. Her eyes and face were full of fear. Why are you here? Seeing Julianne's exaggerated and frightened appearance, Noah couldn't help but feel a little awkward. It seems that the last time I caused such a huge ruckus in Phantom Lord, it seemed that it had left an indelible shadow in this girl's heart. Noah could understand this point. At that time, his attitude and actions were quite strong and shocking. It couldn't be helped that it made people fear him after the incident. But even so, there was no need to face him like he was an executioner who killed without batting an eyelid, right? Wasn't it a little too exaggerated? In fact, Noah didn't think about how exaggerated his actions were at that time. In the blink of an eye, he defeated all the magic shooters in the Phantom Lord Guild. In the blink of an eye, the strongest sorcerer in the Phantom Lord was severely injured. In one move, he took down Gadjaloo and the 4 elements. He turned around and left without saying a word. He even blew up the Phantom Lord's guild building, leaving behind only a pile of rubble and bricks. Under such circumstances, the Phantom Lord Guild suffered a lot of casualties. Especially the most seriously injured Gadjaloo. If it wasn't for his special physique and his tenacious vitality as a Dragon Slayer magic shooter, it was unknown whether he could survive. The fate of the Phantom Lord's 4 elementals wasn't any better. Because of the excessive resistance to Noah's magic, Ulia's eyes were blinded. Bound by the light cage, Thor couldn't get away from the explosion. His whole body was burned and he almost became paralyzed. Although Bunny Ball didn't have any serious injuries, it left an indelible scar. As for Julianne, she relied on the magic that could turn her body into water. Although she escaped the fate of bringing obvious injuries to her body, she had to lie in bed for a long time because of the exhaustion of her magic power. In addition, the guild leader of the Phantom Lord, Joseph, also died in the hands of Noah's pets. It could be said that the entire Phantom Lord guild was destroyed because of Noah alone. So powerful. So tough. So strong. So strong. How could Julianne not fear Noah? Until now, Ulia, Thor, and Bunny Ball were still lying in bed, unable to get up. Thinking of this, Julianne couldn't suppress the fear in her heart for Noah. Don't worry. Faced with Julianne's fearful expression, Noah was more or less annoyed. If people don't provoke me, I won't provoke them. If they don't provoke me and cross my bottom line, I won't bite people like a mad dog, and I won't hurt my guild mates. Don't worry. Yes, yes. Zhu Bian replied weakly, but the fear on his face and in his eyes couldn't subside no matter what. Noah had no choice but to change the topic. Just now, I saw that you wanted to join your companions. Why didn't you play with them? That. Julianne didn't know if it was because of the fear of Noah or because she was embarrassed that her thoughts were seen through. Julianne didn't know how to join in. How do you join if you don't know? Noah found it strange. Are you not good at chatting? Yes. At this point, Zhu Bian's expression was somewhat gloomy. Julianne rarely chats with others, and no one will chat with Julianne. Noah frowned and asked. What's going on? Hearing Noah's words, Julianne's expression became gloomy. Julianne is the rain lady. It will rain wherever I go. That's why everyone hates being with me. It will rain wherever you go. Noah was startled and looked outside. Noah didn't know if it was calculated, or if someone was deliberately using magic to affect the weather, but when Noah looked outside, it immediately darkened, and with a burst of splashing sounds, it began to rain happily. Undoubtedly, it wasn't raining just now, but now it's raining. Could it be that Julianne had used some kind of magic? However, Noah didn't feel any obvious traces of magic on Julianne's body. In other words, this could only be a negative effect brought about by Julianne's magic or physique. Noah scratched his cheeks and said to Julianne with uncertainty, "What's the matter? Don't tell me you didn't chat with others in your previous guild." Julianne didn't say anything, but her expression became even gloomier. Obviously, Noah was right. Walala. At this moment, the rain outside became denser and heavier. Seeing this, Noah couldn't help but have a guess, which made him smile. Then let me help you. Help me. Julianne was startled. Hey! Everyone! Noah suddenly laughed out loud. Julianne said she hasn't had a boyfriend before and wants to find a reliable guy to date. What? Julianne exclaimed in shock. Then, the entire fairy tale suddenly fell silent. Rumble, in the next moment, a group of magic shooters in their 40s and 50s, and some in their teens and 20s, rushed toward Julianne with a momentum that was so dense that it could shake the ground. Julianne was startled. Noah, on the other hand, suddenly pulled away and distanced himself from Zhu Bian. Immediately, Julianne was surrounded by a group of male magic shooters, and her figure was instantly buried. Boyfriend? Are you looking for a boyfriend? You're quite cute, how about considering me? Go, with your qualifications, you should look at me. Julianne, what do you think of me? In such a clamor, Julianne was drowned in voices from all directions, and she seemed to be at a loss. Looking at Julianne, who was at a loss for what to do under the encirclement of the male fairy tale magic shooters, but he was no longer as gloomy as before. Noah quietly retreated and glanced outside the guild. At this moment, the rain just now seemed to have disappeared completely, and was replaced by a bright sun. Sure enough, whether it rains or not is related to Julianne's mood. Noah sighed helplessly. Once she's in a gloomy mood, it will rain. What a strange physique. Is that so? A voice suddenly sounded from behind Noah. I think she's quite cute like this, the child called Julianne. Noah immediately turned around and saw Lebby sitting at the side with a book in her hands. Why do you suddenly want to help that child? Lebby teased. Could it be that Noah has taken a fancy to that child too? Be careful, or I'll complain to Mira. I'm more interested in knowing why you keep calling Julianne that child. Noah couldn't help but glance at Lebby's petite frame that looked like she was only 14 or 15 years old. No matter how I look at it, you look more like a child, don't you think? Upon hearing that, Lebby reflexively raised her arms in front of her chest and glared at Noah. What are you looking at? It's obviously because of your size, isn't it? Why are you covering your chest? Noah retorted. Well, it's understandable. Noah, I just realized that you're a little annoying. Lebby's expression was gloomy. I'll definitely complain to Mira. Hearing Lebby mention Mira, Noah recalled what Lisanna had said earlier. Both Mira and Lisanna had privately expressed their absolute support for Noah. In that case, shouldn't I express my feelings too? With that thought, Noah suddenly had an idea. Hey, Lebby. Noah looked straight at her. Let's go out for a walk. Chapter 4:16. Let's go out for a walk. Hearing Noah say something like that, Lebby was completely stunned. What does that mean? Is it an invitation for a date? That. Lebby asked carefully. Noah, what do you mean by, go out for a walk? Can you be more specific? More specific. Noah found it strange. It means what it means. How much more specific do you need me to be? Ahahaha. Lebby laughed dryly and shook her head. Then you should go look for Mila or Lisanna. I'm not suitable. Why not? Noah's interest was piqued when he saw Lebby's strange reaction. I think Lebby is pretty good. Pretty good. Lebby raised her voice a little. Is it really a date? But doesn't Noah already have Mila? Furthermore, Noah seemed to be in an ambiguous relationship with Lisanna, didn't he? What was the meaning of inviting him now? Is it really like what Jet and Troy said? Is Noah a womanizer who likes every girl he sees? Thinking of this, Lebby shook her head fiercely and denied her guess. After all, Lebby had grown up with Noah in the guild, and she had always seen Noah's performance since he was a child. If Noah was really a womanizer, he wouldn't have been so well behaved after so many years. With Noah's strength, good looks, and good character, if Noah really had the heart, he would have gathered a lot of girls around him. However, Noah had not returned to the guild for 6 years. It was very likely that he had changed in the past 6 years. What should I do? Unable to make up her mind, Levi began to feel conflicted. On the other hand, the corner of Noah's mouth twitched as he watched Lebby fall into silence. She shook her head, suddenly came to a realization, had an uncertain expression, and was inexplicably conflicted. What was the saying again? A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. Why did Lebby become like this all of a sudden? Noah really couldn't figure out the reason. How is it? Noah asked helplessly. Do you agree or not? Can you give me a definite answer? Wait. Lebby said in a panic. Let me think about it. Noah rolled his eyes. Consider. Looking at how conflicted you are, I'm afraid you won't be able to come up with a solution even by nightfall, right? Moreover, Noah had specifically brought it up when Jet and Troy were not around. When Jet and Troy returned, things would probably become even more troublesome. Noah grabbed Lebby's hand and pulled her up from her seat. She was caught off guard by Noah's action. Since you can't come up with an answer, I'll decide for you. Let's go. Wait. Wait. Perhaps it was because she was delusional, but when Noah grabbed her hand, Lebby panicked and stuttered. At least let me bring my book. We're going shopping, not for an exam. Why are we bringing books? Noah pulled Lebby's hand and walked out of the guild. Let's go, let's go. Slow. Slow down. Just like that, Noah and Lebby left the guild amidst their banter. Noah didn't notice. Inside the guild, Julian, who was surrounded by a group of male magic shooters, glanced at Noah's back as he walked out of the guild. There was less fear in his eyes, and more gratitude and curiosity, a jewelry store. After exiting the guild, Leia was stunned when she heard Noah's destination. She then looked at Noah with a doubtful expression. Why are we going to a jewelry store? What can I do there? Noah rubbed his nose and changed the subject. Of course it's to buy something, isn't it? Do you want to buy jewelry? Realization dawned on Levi's face. You want to give it to Mila or Lisanna, right? Well, that's more or less it, Noah said half-heartedly. It's just that it's been 2 years since I left Magnolia. Back then, I trained outside for 4 years, and I didn't stay long after I came back. It's been 6 years since I last visited Magnolia. I don't even know where to find a good shop. So that's why you asked me to show you the way. Lebby finally understood. She didn't know if she was relieved or disappointed as she let out a sigh of relief. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Is that so? Noah looked at her with a half-smile. It seems like someone didn't give me time to explain and fell into some delusional delusion. Lebby blushed and glared at Noah. I'm not delusional. Yes, yes, yes. Noah waved his hand casually as if he didn't hear what Lebby said at all. This made Lebby grit her teeth. Don't look at me like that. Seeing Lebby's hateful expression, Noah stretched out his hand and patted her little head. In return, I'll buy you a book as a gift later. Really? Lebby couldn't care less about Noah patting her head affectionately. She was delighted, but soon seemed to have thought of something and changed the topic. But I remember that you haven't had a job since you came back. You don't have any money on you, right? How are you going to buy jewelry and books? Well. Noah smiled mysteriously. I have my own plans. Thus, under Lebby's lead, Noah arrived at the most famous jewelry store in Magnolia. You want a custom-made diamond ring? The shopkeeper, who looked very upscale and was wearing branded clothes, said to Noah with a very businesslike smile. Of course. It'll only take about half an hour to complete it. Half an hour. Noah couldn't help being surprised. Can it be completed so quickly? Of course. The shop owner recommended in a warm tone. Our store has magical equipment specially configured for the creation of all kinds of jewelry. No matter what kind of jewelry it is, it'll be completed in less than an hour. It'll definitely satisfy you. Hearing this, Noah was relieved. Yes, this world was different from other worlds. No matter what industry it would be related to magic. After all, it was such a convenient thing. It would be a waste if he didn't make good use of it. Then please help me make 2 diamond rings. Noah placed a piece of paper on the counter. The required model number and requirements are already written on it. You just have to follow them. Yes. No problem. At this time, the store owner began to rub his hands together. It's just that, the price. Noah smiled indifferently. He took out a dagger from the side of his jacket. It was an ordinary dagger. However, there were intricate runes engraved on the blade of the dagger. Noah slowly released his magic power from the limited state and poured his magic power into the dagger. In the next moment, the dagger, which was extremely ordinary except for the intricate runes on the blade, flashed with a crackling electric light. Seeing this, the store owner cried out in surprise. Magical weapon. Actually, this was not a magical weapon. It was just an ordinary dagger. However, Noah had engraved runes on this ordinary dagger. This way, as long as he poured magical power into the dagger, the runes engraved on the dagger would be activated. It was no different from an ordinary magical weapon. In this world, the price of a magical weapon was different depending on its effect. The price of a magical weapon with lightning magic had always been high. Originally, Noah wanted to use it to exchange for some money, but now he changed his mind. I'll use this dagger to exchange for 2 diamond rings and 100,000 J. Noah looked at the store owner with a smile. What do you think? Okay. The store owner readily agreed. Even if it was a rough estimate, Noah's dagger could be used to buy 10 diamond rings. In other words, this was a profitable transaction. As long as the store owner wasn't an idiot, he would definitely not refuse. Seeing the store owner's incomparable enthusiasm, Noah sighed and couldn't help but smile. Chapter 4:17. Phew. When the shop owner entered the inner shop to start making rings, Noah heaved a sigh of relief and walked to Lebby, who was reading a new book with great interest at the side. I thought I would have to put in a little effort to persuade him. I didn't think it would be so easy. Although the price of a lightning magic weapon was not cheap, Noah was still here to buy something. Generally speaking, in this kind of formal shop, bartering was basically not allowed. At least, Noah had rarely heard of any shop in the other 3 worlds that supported bartering. Normally, one would have to buy it with cash. Therefore, even if the dagger had the same effect as a normal magic weapon after engraving runi on it, Noah still thought that he would have to put in a lot of effort to persuade him. It was even possible that he would have to sell the dagger before he could buy the ring. In the end, unexpectedly, it was not difficult at all. The most important thing in this world is magic. Therefore, the status of a magic weapon is very high. Lebby did not even lift her head from the book in her hand as she responded to Noah's words as if she was talking to herself. Moreover, the price of your dagger is definitely not low. That shop owner would not reject such a good deal. At this point, Lebby more or less felt a little regretful. Speaking of which, I didn't think that a weapon engraved with runi would have the same value as a magic weapon. It would be great if I could use runi magic. For Noah, engraving runi was not a difficult thing to do. Moreover, it was not some high-level runi that was difficult to engrave. Therefore, Lebby could imagine that if Noah specialized in engraving runi on weapons, he could transform all the normal weapons into magic weapons and sell them one by one. Then, even if he did not work in the guild, he could still become rich and would not have to worry about money. Noah was also inspired by the runi's magic defense system when he was rebuilding the guild. Only then did he think of using this method to earn money. He did not think that it would be so successful. However, in this world, or rather in every world, Noah was the only one who could use this method to earn money. After all, only Noah could pass through the barrier between worlds. Under the guidance of the world, even if he crossed worlds, he could still be in contact with the magic base plate of the Knight of the Magi and continue to use magic. If it was someone else, then there would be no way. This was also the magical effect of the sacred words passed down from Northern Europe. Just like in this world, Lebby's word-type magic couldn't achieve the same effect. If I knew that you had this ability, I would have bought 2 more books just now. Lebby looked at Noah angrily. It's rare that a new book shop The bookstore won't run away. Are you afraid that you won't be able to buy it in the future? Noah glanced at the bulging bag beside Lebby speechlessly. Also, in the end, didn't you buy those new books? I paid for them with my own money. Lebby sighed. Geez, I have to be more careful this month, or else I won't be able to pay for the accommodation at the end of the month. Hearing this, Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly saw an alley from the corner of his eye, causing him to frown. He saw that in an alley opposite the shop, several guys who looked like gangsters were surrounding a child, and their faces were full of hostility. The child was still sitting on the ground, and his face was full of fear. Lebby seemed to be confused as to why Noah suddenly stopped talking. She raised her head and looked at Noah. What's wrong? Nothing. Noah casually replied and turned around. As he walked outside, he waved at Lebby. Wait for me here, I'll go out for a while. Wait. Just as Lebby wanted to say something to Noah, Noah walked out of the shop and directly walked to the opposite side, causing Lebby to tilt her head. Did he suddenly have another idea? With this thought in mind, Lebby refocused her attention on the book in her hand and began to read with great interest. Hey! Kid! Don't play dead. Hurry up and get up. In that narrow alley, 3 extremely badly dressed people were surrounding a child who was sitting on the ground and shivering. The leader of the group was even yelling out viciously. Did you see that? You dirtied my clothes. Upon closer inspection, the corner of the gangster leader's pants was smeared with a little black stain. This little bit of dirt could be wiped off with just a little rub, but the leader of the hooligans had no intention of wiping it off. Instead, he arrogantly placed it there and shouted at the child who was paralyzed on the ground with an insolent expression. Don't you have eyes when you walk? How can you rub on anything? Hurry up and pay for it. Pay for it, pay for it. The 2 hoodlums underlings also chimed in from the side, seeming to enjoy the current situation. Ugh! The child who was paralyzed on the ground could only shrink her body and hold back her tears, not daring to make a sound. She was a young girl who was about 8 or 9 years old. The young girl had short white hair and wore dirty clothes. Even her small face was smeared with dirt. It seemed like she had not changed her clothes for a long time. Moreover, it was very likely that she came from outside Magnolia, otherwise, she would not be so travel-worn. However, this travel-worn appearance had caused some trouble for the young girl. This was because the young girl had bumped into this delinquent leader in the crowd on the street. She had dirted the delinquent leader's pants a little, and in the end, the delinquent leader had made things difficult for her. It was unknown whether the gangster leader was enjoying the thrill of bullying the young girl or was actually planning to cheat money from a child who did not look like a rich person at all. Seeing that the young girl was getting more and more scared, he became more and more pleased. Don't you want to be responsible for your actions? Then don't blame us for being rude. The young girl suddenly trembled and closed her eyes in fear. Hee hee. The gangster leader licked his lips excitedly and reached out to grab the young girl's head. Paw! At this moment, a hand suddenly stretched out from the side and grabbed the gangster leader's wrist. Without giving the gangster leader a chance to react, the hand that grabbed the gangster leader's wrist suddenly pulled hard. The gangster leader was caught off guard and lost his balance. His body fell and floated in the air. Immediately, the owner of the hand suddenly spun and threw the gangster leader away. Bang! The gangster leader with bad intentions directly smashed into an empty wooden box in the alley, smashing the wooden box into pieces. Ouch! Until then, the gangster leader's shrill scream rang out. It couldn't be helped. The wooden box was filled with iron nails. The leader of the hooligans who bumped into it directly sat on it. It wasn't clear whether he was bleeding or not, but from the screams, it should have been very painful. Hearing the hooligan's screams, the dirty girl raised her head in a daze. Then, she saw what was happening. She saw a figure replace the gangster leader's position. She did not know when, but he was standing in between the two gangsters' underlings. The newcomer was naturally Noah. "WH. Who is it?" "You. You bastard." Only then did the two hoodlums react. Just as they were about to make a move, they were swept by a frosty gaze. Suddenly, the two gangsters' underlings only felt their heads turn cold and their hearts turn cold. They involuntarily took a few steps back and distanced themselves from Noah. To this, Noah only coldly said, "Scram! You!" One of the gangsters was enraged, but before he could do anything, the other gangster pulled him back and pointed at the back of Noah's hand. On it, there was a guild emblem that all residents of Magnolia would be familiar with. It was the guild emblem, Fairy Tale. It's from that guild. Hurry. Hurry up and leave." The two gangsters' faces were full of fear as they fled in panic. You guys." The leader of the hooligans who sat in the iron-nailed wooden box was so angry that he wanted to yell. However, when he saw the emblem on the back of Noah's hand, he immediately covered his buttocks and ran away while screaming inaudibly. Chapter 4:18. After a series of rolling and crawling, the three hoodlums all ran away in a sorry state. Not long after, they disappeared from Noah's sight. After the three hoodlums disappeared from his sight, Noah turned around and looked at the dirty white-haired little girl. When her eyes met with Noah's, the little girl couldn't help but jump in fright. She quickly shrank her body and spoke in a trembling voice. Thank you, sir." From the beginning, the little girl used honorifics that normal children would never use. It was not polite behavior, but a certain emotion in the little girl's heart that caused trouble. Inferiority. He didn't know what kind of life she had in the past, but there seemed to be a very strong sense of inferiority in the little girl's heart, causing the little girl to constantly place her status below everyone else. Thus, the so-called "Sir" title was born. Although there was no proof, Noah inexplicably understood this point. At that moment, Noah couldn't help but slightly crouch down, and even kneel on one knee on the ground. He took out the handkerchief that Mira would secretly stuff into his pocket every day. He stretched out his empty hand, lifted the little girl's little face, and gently wiped it. When Noah stretched out his hand, the little girl still had a frightened look on her face. But when Noah used extremely gentle movements to help the little girl wipe her face, the fear in the little girl's heart magically disappeared. This was not strange. In the world of the Black Bullet, Noah often took care of the children of the cursed child, like a nanny. Thus, Noah had already mastered how to eliminate the nervousness, timidity, and fear in a child's heart. This gentle wiping action was one of them. After wiping the little girl's dirty little face clean, Noah was surprised to find that the little girl in front of him was quite cute. Moreover, the little girl's hair was white and did not go past her shoulders. Her appearance was at least 95% similar to Lisanna's when she was young. If Lisanna saw this little girl, she would definitely be very surprised, right? Not knowing the surprise in Noah's heart, the little girl nervously opened her mouth. Thank you, sir." It was the same sentence, but instead of fear, it sounded more nervous. This caused Noah to recover from his shock. He smiled slightly and stuffed the handkerchief into the young girl's hand. "What's your name?" "Me." The young girl glanced at Noah hesitantly. After a while, she responded with a mosquito's voice. My name is Shwenai. Noah couldn't help but smile. He gently rubbed the snow-white hair of the girl named Shwenai. "This name suits you." "Thank you for your exaggeration, my lord." Shwenai lowered his head. That was because Shwenai didn't dare to look straight at Noah, and also because Xuanai didn't want Noah to see her reveal a comfortable expression when she was rubbing his head. Perhaps it was because Noah's methods of dispelling the negative emotions in children's hearts were truly exceptional. Xuanai secretly glanced at Noah. After a while, she gathered her courage and asked this question. Why are those bad guys so afraid of Lord? Hearing this, Noah was stunned. Why do you ask this question? Xuanai wants to learn. The white-haired girl said with an innocent and pure expression. If that's the case, no one will bully Xuanai in the future. This sentence caused the smile on Noah's face to disappear bit by bit. He fixed his gaze on Xuanai's tender and timid little face. He sighed and smiled. They're afraid of me because I'm a sorcerer. Sorcerer? Xuanai tilted her head. Lord, are you a sorcerer? That's right. Noah suddenly smiled. Moreover, you're a sorcerer from the strongest guild in the Fiori kingdom. The strongest guild. Sorcerer. Xuanai murmured as if she was sleep-talking. She couldn't help but let out a longing voice. If Xuanai can also become a sorcerer, that would be great. Why not? Noah raised an eyebrow. As long as Xuanai wants to, she can definitely become a great sorcerer. Hearing Noah's words, Xuanai's eyes couldn't help but brighten. She looked at Noah with a face full of hope. Really? Xuanai can also learn magic. Can she become a sorcerer? Xuanai, you have to remember one thing. Noah looked straight at Xuanai's sparkling eyes. The possibilities of a person are limitless. It's the same for magic. That is everyone's heart. Heart. Xuanai repeated in confusion. That's right. Magic is the human heart. As long as one knows how to persevere, then no matter who it is, they can learn magic. Noah used his hand to gently caress Xuanai's little face. His action was exceptionally gentle, as if it could calm one's heart, making Xuanai feel a sense of peace and attachment. As long as Xuanai firmly believes that you can become a great sorcerer, then your heart will definitely respond to you and bestow you magic. Really? Unknowingly, Xuanai had long forgotten her vigilance and fear toward strangers. She was subconsciously attracted by Noah's words. She slightly approached Noah, stretched out her hand, and grabbed Noah's clothes. She spoke with a face full of expectation. Then if Xuanai learns magic, will I not bring misfortune to others and not be bullied by others? That will depend on what Xuanai wants to do after learning magic. Noah tried his best to soften his tone as if he was trying to give the young girl hope. If Xuanai only wants to not be bullied, then as long as you learn magic, there will be very few people who can bully you in the future. But if Xuanai wants to become a great sorcerer, not only does she not want to be bullied, but she also wants to help those who are bullied. That will require more effort. Help others. The expression on Xuanai's pretty face dimmed slightly. Can Xuanai also help others? What are you talking about? Noah laughed involuntarily, and lightly knocked on Xuanai's little head. Don't forget, you have to believe that you can do it, then your heart will respond to you and give you magic. Yes. Yes. Xuanai then remembered what Noah said before. Her little head repeatedly nodded, and her eyes were filled with hope for the future. Seeing this, Noah knew that he had succeeded. The young girl in front of him seemed to be the same as Elisha. She had a past that couldn't be described as beautiful, causing her to become quite inferior. Noah wanted to let Xuanai's heart have a little more hope for reality in the future, so that she would have more motivation and live a better life. Seeing that you are so obedient, I will give you some gifts. Saying this, Noah took out 2 things and placed them in Xuanai's little hand. It was a money bag and a key. The money bag was just exchanged from the jewelry store owner with a dagger engraved with runi. There were 100,000 J coins inside. The key was the Star Soul key. It was given to Noah by Lucy when Noah returned to this world, before returning to the guild with Alusha, Naz, Gray, and Lucy. Noah originally wanted to use this key as a talisman, but now, if he gave it to Xuanai, perhaps it could let Xuanai sign a contract with the Star Soul and awaken the Star Soul magic. Use them well, Noah said softly as he put the money bag and key into Xuanai's hand. I hope that the next time we meet, you will have become a great sorcerer. Leaving this sentence, Noah stood up, patted Xuanai's little head, turned around, and left without any reluctance. My lord. Xuanai, who had been staring at the money bag and key in her hand, finally recovered from her absent-minded state. She quickly got up and shouted in the direction of Noah. Please tell Xuanai. What is your name? As soon as the voice fell, Noah's voice reverberated in Xuanai's ears. My name is Noah, goodbye, little Xuanai. With such a sentence, Noah walked into the opposite jewelry store and disappeared from Xuanai's sight. Xuanai stared blankly at the direction where Noah disappeared. After a long time, she lowered her head and looked at the money bag and key in her hand. She held them tightly in her arms and murmured as if she had found the most precious treasure. Noah. My lord, in the mood of worrying about gains and losses, Xuanai couldn't help but think of Noah's words just now. The sorcerer of the strongest guild, tightly holding the money bag and key, Xuanai showed an unprecedented determined expression. In the future, I will also join the strongest guild and become the sorcerer of the strongest guild. Chapter 4:19. When Noah returned to the jewelry store, the shop owner, who had been forging rings in the inner shop, had already appeared. Levi had put away her book and seemed to be discussing something with the owner. She only heaved a sigh of relief when Noah returned. Great, I thought you wouldn't come back. You're exaggerating, aren't you? Noah rolled his eyes at Layla. Immediately, he shifted his gaze and looked at the shop owner who was full of smiles as he inquired. Is it done? Yes, sorry to keep you waiting. The owner handed 2 decorated boxes to Noah. Please take a look and see if it meets your requirements. Noah and Levi shifted their attention to the 2 boxes, and their eyes lit up at the same time. The lid of the box was open. Therefore, Noah and Levi could clearly see the contents of the 2 boxes. They were 2 extremely exquisite rings in all aspects. Both rings were of a pure silver-white color. The ring was slender, and at first glance, it was obvious that it was a more feminine design. The ring was inlaid with a diamond that was neither too big nor too small. Under the sunlight, it shone with a dazzling arc like a pearl, but it was even more dazzling and attractive than a pearl. These 2 rings were incomparable to those priceless and unique treasures, but in terms of craftsmanship, appearance, cost, and exquisiteness, they were the best of the best. She believed that even the wedding rings of some rich couples were probably at this level. Of course, the most important thing was that for women who loved beauty by nature, such 2 rings could definitely evoke the longing of any girl. This could be seen from Rebbe, who had always displayed an obvious interest in reading books. It's so beautiful. Levi's eyes were sparkling. I want it so much. Even Noah couldn't find any fault with the 2 rings, let alone Levi. He nodded in satisfaction and closed the box. Thank you, owner. You're welcome, the restaurant owner rubbed his hands and said to Noah enthusiastically. If you have any requests in the future, please continue to visit our store. We will provide you with the best service and products. Of course, Noah nodded with a smile and walked out with the 2 boxes in his hands. He couldn't hide his joy. Just as Lebby was about to follow him, she noticed that the shopkeeper was wiping a tiny diamond on his sleeve. That diamond was not as exquisite as the diamond inlaid on the 2 rings on Noah's hand. At first glance, it was obvious that it had not been specially polished. Levi rolled her eyes when she saw the small diamond. She seemed to have understood something and curiously moved her face closer to the owner. Is that the diamond left over from the polishing of the 2 rings? Yes. When I was making it, I thought I would need more, so I cut a little more. In the end, it was left over. The shop owner seemed to be overjoyed. It's a little small, but if you polish it well, it can be made into a high-priced ring. Is that so? Levi said with a smile. Then, give me this small diamond. The shopkeeper was stunned. He did not expect Levi to make such a request out of the blue. That's the diamond left over, right? It's also my companion's property. Levi reminded him out of kindness. If you let him know that you still have such a diamond left after forging the ring and haven't given it to him, then my partner will definitely think that you are cutting corners. Then, next time, he will definitely not bring you the same business. Even that dagger may be taken back. Don't. Only then did the shopkeeper realize what was going on. He let out a hollow laugh and handed the tiny diamond to Layla reluctantly. I just forgot about it. Please pass it to that person. I will. Levi replied cheerfully. She took the diamond and skipped out of the jewelry store. Afterward, Levi put the tiny diamond into a pouch that looked like an amulet. She tied the pouch with a red string and hung it around her neck. As for why she did that, perhaps even she didn't know. Night came quietly. Lying on the bed in his room, Noah held a box in one hand and opened the lid of the box. He started to observe the 2 delicate rings once again. As if it was planned, the door to Noah's room was pushed open. Mira and Lisanna entered at the same time. Noah, big brother Noah, come in. In the 2 years that Noah had left Fairy Tale, Mira and Lisanna had helped him clean his room almost every day. They had long regarded Noah's room as their own and wouldn't have any restrictions. With their current relationship with Noah, they didn't need to care about anything when they entered their sweetheart's room. Therefore, with just a simple greeting, the beautiful sisters of the Strauss family entered Noah's room as if they were entering their own room. It's already dark. Why are you here? Noah hurriedly got up from his bed and looked at the sky outside the window. He then looked at Mira and Lisanna with a reproachful gaze. You 2 are already tired today. Why don't you go home and rest? Due to the turmoil in the magic world, it wasn't just Fairy Tale. As long as a guild had the ability to go on a punitive expedition against the Dark Guild and the Order of Magic, they would be in a period of eruption of requests. The emergence of the Dark Guild and the Order of Magic in various parts of the Fiori Kingdom had greatly affected the local residents. They were even a threat and danger. Many residents were in a state of panic and secretly issued requests to various guilds to invite archmages to annihilate the Dark Guild. Mira was a retired S-rank magic shooter from the Fairy Tale. Although it was not yet necessary to ask her to take action, Mira was the one who handled all kinds of miscellaneous affairs and official affairs in the guild. In order to deal with the requests from all over the kingdom, Mira must have been very busy today. As for Lisanna, she had been tormented by Noah for a few hours during the day. She hadn't even rested for a while before going down to help Mira with various tasks. She must be very tired now. We were just about to go back. Myra's smile was still as gentle as ever. But before we go back, we wanted to say hello to you. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but laugh. In the guild, Noah, Mira, and Lisanna could see each other almost every day. However, the 2 of them seemed to have made up their minds to come to Noah's room every morning when they came to the guild and when they left at night. Even Noah couldn't do anything about it. Of course, Noah wouldn't object to being together with Mira and Lisanna. At this moment, Lisanna noticed the 2 diamond rings in Noah's hands. Her eyes immediately lit up and she reached out to tug at Noah's clothes. Hey, big brother Noah, what's this? After hearing what Lisanna said, no matter how natural Mira was, it was impossible for her not to notice it. When she saw the two exquisitely crafted diamond rings, her expression immediately brightened. This made Noah sigh. As expected, women are unable to withstand the test of the charm of a diamond. With this thought in mind, Noah rolled his eyes and replied with a spurious smile. Of course, this is for when I propose to my future bride. Propose? Mira and Lisanna glanced at each other. Their eyes were nailed to the two rings, and they couldn't take their eyes off them. If the two girls had only seen the rings as something they liked before, then now they were looking at the most precious treasures of their lives. Even their eyes were shining. Seeing this, Noah mischievously closed the lid and said, "You have to keep them safe. I have to keep them safe and take them out when I need to propose in the future." No. At this moment, whether it was the gentle Mira or the cute Lisanna, both of them cried out in alarm and pounced on Noah without caring about their image. In an instant, the two girls were in a mess on the bed, fighting for the two small boxes with all their might. It lasted until the middle of the night before the persistent Mira and Lisanna won. Chapter 420. Fiancé. The next day, in the hall on the first floor of Fairy Tale, all the magic shooters of Fairy Tale were stunned when they saw Mira and Lisanna hugging Noah's arm tightly. Noah was surrounded in the middle with a blissful expression on his face. This was because Mira and Lisanna had ignored Noah's dissuasion and hugged Noah's arm tightly while informing the entire guild of this shocking news. This caused an uproar in the hall and then a sudden silence in the next moment. Fiancé. Naz, Gray, Hubby, and the others were all dumbfounded. Fiancé. 2. Lucy and Levi opened their mouths wide in shock and couldn't react at all. Mira and Lisanna. Alusha's eyes widened and her mouth formed an O shape. She pointed at Noah, Mira, and Lisanna with trembling hands. In other words, you're going to get married. No, we don't plan to get married so soon, Noah quickly said. He couldn't help it as the atmosphere was too awkward for him. It's just that we plan to get engaged first and get married later. Get married, get married. Alusha muttered absent-mindedly. After a while, she seemed to have thought of something and smoke suddenly appeared in her head. Even her fingers were fidgeting. That, I'm not mentally prepared yet. No, they're going to get married, not you. All of the magic shooters in Fairy Tale complained in unison. At this time, the one who felt the most incredulous was Makarov. At this time, the wine glass in Makarov's hand fell to the ground. He staggered in front of Noah, Mira, and Lisanna and asked with an extremely ugly expression that looked like he was crying and laughing at the same time. Getting married? Noah. My grandson. Marrying Mira and Lisanna. Yes. The smile on Myra's beautiful face was still gentle, but it was much brighter than before. She even raised her hand with the diamond ring and showed it to everyone. Yesterday, Noah proposed to us, and the answer we gave was okay. Levi exclaimed in surprise. So that ring is for a marriage proposal. Grandpa. Noah's gaze met Makarov's. The awkwardness in his heart had long disappeared, and only warmth filled his heart. I'm really going to get married and have a family. Have a family. Have a family. Makarov lowered his head and shoulders trembled. After a while, he suddenly burst into tears. Guild leader. All the magic shooters in the guild were shocked. Grandpa's face. My grandson is finally going to start a family. Makarov cried out in joy. Moreover, there are two of them. Hearing this, the sorcerers in Fairy Tale understood that Makarov's reaction was only because he was too excited and moved. Grandpa. Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That being said, we're just getting engaged first. As for when we'll get married, we'll discuss it later. Let's get engaged first. Let's get engaged first. Makarov was already speaking incoherently. When we get married in the future, we must hold the grandest wedding in the entire Fiori kingdom. Only then can we show the prestige of the next president of Fairy Tale. Guild leader. This time, Lisanna was a little shy. You made your decision too quickly. Although she said so, Lisanna's face was full of longing. She was obviously looking forward to her wedding, or rather, she was looking forward to the moment when she became Noah's bride. Lisanna. Beside her, Myra's pretty face was also slightly red, but she still quietly tugged at Lisanna. You have to call me Grandpa in the future. Lisanna was even more shy. That's really too fast. It's okay, it's okay. It doesn't matter when you call me Grandpa. Makarov laughed with tears in his eyes. In short, we're having a banquet today. To celebrate my grandson's engagement. Oh. Although Nazi, Gray, and the others were still very surprised, they still cheered enthusiastically and gave their blessings to their childhood best friend. Congratulations. Noah. Gray hugged Noah's neck and laughed. You rascal, I didn't expect you to get married so soon. You're really hateful. Although I don't quite understand. Nazi put his hands on his waist and laughed loudly. But still, congratulations, Noah. Hey, Nazi. Hubby was frightened by Alusha's appearance and flew in Nazi's direction. Alusha has become very strange. Get married, get married. Alusha's head was still smoking and she was in a crash. Damn it. As for the rest of the magic shooters from Fairy Tale, they let out tragic cries of grief. Oh, our Mila sauce. Hey. Is no one complaining? Lucy felt that her whole body was not good and could not help but remind them loudly. Noah is going to marry two people. Two people. Two people is good. Two people is good. Makarov was so happy that he lost his sense of direction. But it was not strange. Although Noah was not Makarov's biological grandson, Makarov did not regard Noah as an adopted grandson at all. After all, Laxus was already like that, and Noah was quite capable. Whether it was strength, temperament, intelligence, or methods, there was nothing that was not outstanding. Makarov had always been proud of him. Now, such a grandson was going to get married. As a grandfather, how could Makarov not be happy? In addition, the other party was the extremely popular masked lady Mira Jenny and her sister Lisanna, who was not inferior to her elder sister in the slightest. These two treasures of the guild, Makarov loved them dearly. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party was Noah, perhaps the first one to stand up and object would be Makarov. As for the male magic shooters in the guild, they were already lying on the ground with tears streaming down their faces. He's actually marrying two women. And sisters. Levi, who finally reacted from the shock, let out an extremely complicated sigh. This is the first time I've heard that someone other than a king and a noble would marry two people at the same time. Although there was no such thing as monogamy in this world, people tacitly agreed that there was only one person to marry, even if it was a wealthy businessman. Take Lucy for example. Lucy's father was a rich man, but he had only married Lucy's mother from the beginning to the end. So far, there had been no news of him marrying a second person. And generally, those who would marry more than one person were either the king of a country or some nobles whose status was only below the king. It was not impossible for ordinary people to marry two people, but it was really, really rare. But no matter what, the moment the rings were put on Mira and Lisanna's hands, this fact had already been decided. It also meant that Mira and Lisanna, the sisters, had truly begun to accept reality and serve a man together. Regarding this, the happiest people were Jet and Troy. Good. Jet shouted. That's great. Noah. Troy also exclaimed excitedly. We support you. This way, the chances of Levi joining the pirate ship would be infinitely reduced to zero. How could Jet and Troy not support him? Unfortunately, nothing was absolute in this world. What would happen in the future would only be known in the future. Ever since I was young, I've always felt that you're not a simple man. I didn't expect you to really do it. Kana, who had returned from her mission, giggled as she raised her glass. Well, anyway, let's drink. Grandpa, where's Elfman? Noah rubbed his nose, ignoring the mockery and complaints of the people around him as he asked Makarov. Elfman hasn't returned from his mission yet. When I received the report in the morning, he said that he was already on his way back. Makarov patted Noah's shoulder, his old face flushed red. When he comes back, you should tell him about this in person. Noah nodded heavily, apologizing in his heart. I'm sorry, Elfman, I'll take care of your elder and younger sister. Chapter 421. Pa. Not long after returning to Fairy Tale, Elfman, who had just put down his luggage, dropped the wine glass that he had just picked up onto the ground with a crisp sound. However, Elfman didn't notice it at all. He stared blankly at Noah, Mira, and Lisanna. His resolute face was filled with shock, bewilderment, and disbelief. Although the sorcerers in Fairy Tale behaved the same way at the beginning, Noah could not hide his awkwardness when he was faced with the same behavior again, especially when it was Elfman. That was only natural. No matter who it was, they would react the same way as Elfman when they heard that someone was going to marry more than one of their family members. It was because of this that Noah felt so awkward. If he was only marrying one, he wouldn't have to feel guilty. The problem was that Noah wasn't marrying one, but two, and they were marrying the older and younger sisters of Elfman. Fortunately, it was Noah who told Elfman that he was going to marry his older sister and younger sister. If it were anyone else, Elfman would probably be waving his fist. Compared to Noah, Mira and Lisanna were calm. They wore gentle and cute smiles respectively as they gazed at Elfman. They seemed to be enjoying Elfman's reaction. Phew. After some time, Elfman let out a heavy sigh. He picked up another wine glass and finished it in one gulp. Then, he looked at Noah sternly. Noah, I've always thought that you're a man. Is that so? Noah couldn't help but reveal a puzzled expression. But why don't I feel happy about your praise at all? That's what a man is. Elfman used a theory that no one else could understand as he stared at Noah. That's why, as a man, Noah, teasing another man is absolutely unforgivable. Upon hearing that, Mira and Lisanna couldn't help but giggle. Only Noah let out an understanding sigh. It was understandable that Elfman couldn't believe it, wasn't it? Elfman, Mira said softly as if she was trying to console her younger brother. You can't doubt the words of others. It's very rude. Big brother Elfman, it's all true, Lisanna teased. Big sister Mira and I are going to become Noah's brides. You can't object even if you want to. That's what a real man is. Elfman's tanned face was covered in sweat as he said this. That's right. A man has to be able to accept everything. A man has to be able to marry two wives. A man has to marry the same man. That's what a man is. Seeing that Elfman had fallen into a state of incoherence, Noah didn't even have the mood to complain about the strange things that Elfman said. I know that this is too sudden, but Elfman, I'm not joking. Noah could only meet Elfman's gaze head-on. Although I haven't decided when, I will definitely take your sisters away from you forever. That's a fact. Saying that he would take Elfman's sisters away from him forever was more or less an exaggeration, but it wasn't entirely false. Although he had thought of all sorts of possibilities, Noah only wanted to use this to express his determination. That was because Noah knew how important each other's existence was to Mira, Elfman, and Lisanna. Ever since they were young, the three of them had relied on each other for survival. In the lives of these three siblings, their father and mother, who had long ceased to exist in their lives, were not even as important as each other. The three of them used to live in the same village, but because Mira had awakened the demon's magic, she was chased out of the village. Later on, in order to survive, they ran to all corners of the Fiori kingdom and even joined Fairy Tale. The three of them had never left each other's side. Therefore, to Elfman, his elder sister and younger sister were definitely the most important thing in his life, without exception. To Mira and Lisanna, Elfman's status as a family member was also the most important. He was even on par with the person they loved the most, which was Noah. Therefore, since Noah had decided to get engaged to Mira and Lisanna first and would definitely marry them in the future, he didn't want to face Elfman with a perfunctory attitude. Mira and Lisanna seemed to understand Noah's thoughts. They both shut their mouths and chose to watch from the side. They looked at Noah and Elfman with extremely gentle expressions, showing the most complete trust. The two men in front of them, one was their lover, and the other was their most important family member. Therefore, Mira and Lisanna believed that the two men wouldn't make a decision that would disappoint them. Elfman seemed to have seen Noah's seriousness from Noah's attitude. He finally snapped out of his messy state and scratched his head in frustration. Although I've already seen that my sister and Lisanna's attitudes towards you are different, I didn't expect them to choose to marry you in the end. Elfman crossed his arms and looked at Noah with a sharp gaze that he would never use in the past. As a man, Noah, I only want you to promise me that you will protect my sister and sister with your life. Can you do that? Hearing this, Noah smiled. His smile was strangely arrogant. Is this the first day you've known me? Noah didn't give any promises, nor did he make any vows. Elfman smiled as well. That's a real man. Seeing this scene with their own eyes, Mira and Lisanna revealed gentle smiles. As expected, these two men wouldn't disappoint them. At this moment, Elfman suddenly changed the topic. Then, should I call you brother-in-law or brother-in-law in the future? This one sentence made Noah, Mira, and Lisanna choke at the same time. None of them had thought of this question before. No matter what, today was a happy day. Just like a festival, all the banquets in Fairy Tale were destined to last for the whole day. At this moment, whether it was those who sincerely gave their blessings or those who were envious, they seemed to have forgotten everything and were jubilant. So much so that no one noticed. On the second floor of Fairy Tale, a solemn atmosphere that was completely out of tune with the jubilant atmosphere of the guild was permeated in a corner. There were 4 people in that corner. They were none other than Raxus and the 3 members of the Thunder God Council. Looking down at Noah, who was surrounded by a group of people and had entered an endless toasting scenario, continuously drinking cup after cup of wine with a bitter smile on his face, Laxus tightened his grip on the guardrail bit by bit. The emotion surging in his eyes was an unprecedented kind of madness. At this moment, the only thing that reverberated in Laxus's mind was the sentence that Makarov had said in a state of ecstasy. Fairy Tale's next guild leader. Thinking of this sentence, Laxus's heart surged with a wave of violent emotions. Even his eyes turned red. In the end, you still chose to let that kind of person inherit the guild. How long do you want this guild to be a coward, old man? Standing behind Laxus, Fried, Bixro, Alba, and Jerlin were silent. This was because they knew what this news meant to Raxus. Letting that kind of person who pays attention to trash become the guild leader, what's the point of this guild? Laxus was in a state of madness. This guild doesn't need weaklings. Since you don't understand, let me tell you. Chapter 422. It wasn't until the sky had completely darkened that the sounds of jubilation from Fairy Tale finally stopped and disappeared without a trace. Gotcha! In a room on the top floor of Fairy Tale, the door was opened with a soft sound. Mira and Lisanna each held one of Noah's arms and carefully helped Noah, who was walking a little unsteadily, into the room. They gently put Noah on the bed before letting out a sigh of relief. "Big brother Noah, you can't do this." Lisanna looked at Noah, who was lying on the bed with his originally dark and deep eyes filled with haziness. He even reached out his hand to cover his head. Lisanna panted and complained to Noah in a complaining tone. "Undoubtedly, you don't drink often, and you don't even drink at all. How can you drink so much today?" "Ugh." Noah moved his body as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he gave up because of the dizziness in his head. He covered his head and made a sound that didn't make any sound. It couldn't be helped. Noah really drank too much today. Almost from the start of Makarov's banquet in the morning, Noah had been toasted by his companions in Fairy Tale, one by one. Among them, some were sincerely offering their blessings to Noah. People like Naz, Gray, Elfman, and the others, who didn't usually drink, made an exception and drank a little today. It was to offer their blessings to Noah. Naturally, it was inevitable that they would toast to Noah. On the other hand, some of them were purely evil and wanted to make fun of Noah. For example, Kana, Mikhail, Wakaba, Jet, Troy, and the others, who were all older members. Just to see Noah make a fool of himself, or just for the fun, or even because a popular girl like Mira was snatched away by Noah, they all toasted Noah, looking like they wouldn't give up until they got Noah drunk. Then, there were people like Lucy, Lebby, and Alusha who followed the surrounding atmosphere in a state of confusion and toasted Noah. As a result, throughout the day, Noah was constantly toasted. He kept drinking. The heavens took pity on him. Before this, Noah didn't drink at all. Today, he was forced to drink so much wine, even more than Kana's wine barrel. If it wasn't for Noah's extraordinary physique, at this moment, he probably wouldn't just feel a little dizzy, causing him to become drunk. Well, Lisanna, you don't have to blame Noah. Noah is so happy. Mira seemed to be worried about Noah. She sat on the edge of the bed and gently patted Noah's chest while wiping Noah's face with a handkerchief. Just like a wife who was taking care of her husband who had gotten drunk while socializing outside. Moreover, this is all due to the good intentions of our companions in the guild. Noah is so gentle. It's normal for her not to reject him. But, he really drank too much. Looking at Noah, who seemed to be very uncomfortable, a pained expression appeared on Lisanna's face. Big brother Noah didn't drink before. That's true. Mira also smiled bitterly, but still used an extremely gentle method. He helped Noah soothe his breathing and wipe his face. "If this happens again, we have to stop it." "Yes." Lisanna nodded heavily and sat on the edge of the bed. She gently patted Noah's chest. After a while, she seemed to have thought of something and her face turned slightly red. "Then, with big brother Noah in this state, does someone have to stay behind to take care of him tonight?" Mira was stunned when she heard Lisanna's words. She then looked at Lisanna with amusement. "Do you want to stay behind to accompany Noah tonight?" "Big sister Mira," Lisanna said to Mira as if she was throwing a tantrum. "Big sister Mira, are you okay with big brother Noah staying alone in the guild like this?" "That's true." Mira immediately held her face in distress. "Tonight, you should stay here to look after Noah." Lisanna was stunned. "Big sister Mira, are you going to stay too?" "Ah. Mira blinked her beautiful big eyes. "Or do you want to stay here alone and do something with Noah that I can't see?" No. Lisanna felt a little guilty. In fact, Mira was also feeling a little shy. Being alone with Noah. This pair of sisters who were infatuated with Noah would definitely be happy to see that. However, if they were alone, it meant that they could do something that only lovers could do. Women all yearned for the love of their beloved men. Both Mira and Lisanna yearned for intimacy with Noah. However, this pair of sisters seemed to have thought of something that was not suitable for children and raised the level of intimacy by many levels. That was why they became shy. Although they knew that the other party had already given their hearts and minds to Noah, neither Mira nor Lisanna revealed this matter. They deliberately pretended to be confused. If they were to reveal it openly, it would be too embarrassing. However, the two bashful girls didn't know how tempting their blushing and bashful appearance was to a man who had already tasted their beauty and fallen into a half-conscious state. Ah! Ah! With two short screams, Mira and Lisanna felt themselves being pulled by someone. Then, with a forceful tug, they fell to the ground. In the next moment, a man with a strong masculine aura and a strong smell of alcohol turned over and pressed the two girls under him. His body temperature rose slightly, causing his body to be scorching hot. Noah, brother Noah. Only then did Mira and Lisanna react. Looking at Noah, who was lying on top of them with a sinister look on his face due to his drunken stupor, they let out another cry of surprise. The one closest to Noah was Mira. That was why Noah, who had been attracted by Mira's cry, turned to look at her slightly open mouth. Ugh! Shortly after, a pained sound came from Mira's mouth. It was the sound of Mila's lips being roughly covered by Noah's mouth. Ugh! Ugh! Mira subconsciously closed her eyes, but she did not forget the fact that her younger sister was watching. She immediately whimpered in an attempt to avoid Noah's kiss. However, before she could succeed, her lips were pried open by a skillful force, and her tongue was captured. Ugh! TSK. Ugh! Ugh! Mira's body trembled slightly, and she was at a loss for what to do. Sounds of lips and tongue intertwining could be heard from the corner of her mouth. Lisanna, who saw all this, was stunned and could not react at all. With 2 layers of clothes between them, Noah could clearly feel the softness of their bodies. Coupled with the fact that he was touching Mira's lips and tongue, an indescribably wonderful feeling was transmitted to Noah's nerves along with the fragrance of a young girl. Noah captured Mira's delicate tongue and entangled it even more tightly with it. Mira could only use a strength that could not even kill a mosquito, as if she wanted to break free from Noah's intimacy. However, her cheeks were already flushed red, and her body trembled subconsciously. Her large breasts were pressed tightly against Noah's body, and she subconsciously used her tongue to cater to him while gently twisting her body. This kind of inadvertent seduction naturally made Noah's emotions even more aroused, and he became even more engrossed in the kiss. Soft gasps could be heard from Noah and Mira's lips. Noah had already entered a state of intoxication from the double meaning, and he could not help but feel a wave of heat surge up his body. He held Mira and Lisanna tightly in front of him and reached for their soft breasts, kneading them. The 2 sisters of the Strauss family trembled heavily at the same time. Ugh! Mira, who was being hugged and kissed, could only let out an unclear trembling sound. Ah! Lisanna, who was lying under Noah in a daze, let out a clear cry. The feeling of her chest being ravaged made her react, and she realized what kind of situation she was in. Her beautiful face suddenly became incomparably red, and she got up in a panic. Big brother Noah, don't. Mira and Lisanna had never tried to serve Noah in the true sense of sisters. Now that they were aware of Noah's intentions, the 2 sisters were panicking. However, no matter how panicked they were, they could not escape from tonight's situation. Ah! Not long after, the clothes of the 2 girls fell to the ground amidst a series of delicate cries. The sound of panting sounded like music. Chapter 423. Ugh! When Noah woke up from his sleep, a burst of indescribable headache and a comfortable feeling assaulted him at the same time. Noah, who was wrapped in two extremely contradictory feelings, squeezed out a sound from his throat. "My head hurts." Clutching his head, Noah's expression was so bitter that it could darken. "But, my body feels so comfortable." Patting his head, Noah faintly opened his eyes. Immediately, he was startled and revealed an astonished expression. "Whoa!" Letting out a sound like a puppy acting coquettishly to its owner, two white girls snuggled up to Noah's left and right and fell into a deep sleep. The white color here referred to the long and short hair color of the two young girls, as well as the rosy white color of the two young girls' bodies. It also referred to the extremely alluring skin color of the two young girls' bodies. At this very moment, Mira and Lisanna, the two sisters, were lying by Noah's side, tightly snuggling in his embrace. Their heads were pillowed on Noah's chest, and their beautiful faces carried an intoxicating blush as they slept peacefully. Because of this, the two girls' huge softness, which ordinary women couldn't compare to, were tightly pressed against Noah's chest under the blanket, giving Noah a feeling of softness that other things couldn't compare to. The reason why Noah felt so comfortable was all because of this. Being tightly surrounded by two delicate bodies that could make all men drool, no matter who it was, they would feel very comfortable. These two white girls. Naturally, they were the sisters of the Strauss family. Looking at Myra's and Lisanna's enviable white skin and seductive little faces, which faintly revealed from the blanket, they slept peacefully. Noah quivered, and all the memories in his mind returned in an instant. Yes. Noah still remembered what happened last night. Although he had been forced to drink by almost all the archmages in fairy tale, his body was much stronger than his own. However, Noah's body was much stronger than the average person's. Even though it was the first time he drank so much, he was still half drunk and half sober, maintaining half of his consciousness. Thus, Noah still remembered what happened last night in a daze. The memory of forcefully pulling Mira and Lisanna onto his bed. While Mira and Lisanna were extremely bashful, they stripped the two girls of their clothes without giving them any chance to explain. The memory of Mira and Lisanna pressing down on the two sisters, despite their resistance. The memory of hugging these two beautiful girls, listening to their soft moans, and entangling with Mira and Lisanna for an entire night. These memories all returned to Noah's mind. Together with the physical pleasure brought about by last night's entanglement, Noah's heart was shaken. As the saying goes, a gentle home is a hero's grave. Being embraced by the gentleness of these two little demonesses, no matter how firm Noah's heart was, it was unavoidable that it would melt. Especially when he thought of the pleasure brought about by last night's entanglement, Noah almost didn't want to get out of bed. He might as well hug his two future wives and sleep like a log. Truly a love-hate relationship. Noah reached out his hand with such feelings. He gently smoothed out the bangs on Mira and Lisanna's foreheads that were slightly sweaty due to their hard work all night, leaving a light kiss on each of their foreheads. This action was very gentle, and shouldn't have woken up those who were sleeping soundly. Lisanna, who appeared to be a little sluggish, was indeed still sleeping soundly, but Mira seemed to have sensed something. Her eyelids trembled slightly, and she opened her eyes, which were filled with moisture. Her eyes, which were still a little blurry, opened. Noah, who was just about to get out of bed, was surprised to see Mira open her eyes. Sorry. Did I wake you up? Oh. Mira raised her hazy eyes and stared at Noah. After a while, she gave him a dazed smile. Allah, are you awake? Seeing Mira's dazed appearance, Noah knew that this girl's hidden nature was showing its existence. She still didn't realize what was going on, and didn't remember the absurdity of last night. At that moment, Noah mischievously moved the hand that was hidden under the blanket and gently stroked one of Mira's round breasts. Feeling the strange sensation on her chest, Mira finally woke up. She looked at Noah, who was looking at her with a teasing expression, and then glanced at Lisanna, who was sleeping soundly on the other side. Her face, which was originally a little red, slowly became rosy, and she even puffed up her cheeks. "Noah, you're very naughty. You don't like it?" Noah lightly kissed Myra's sweaty, red face. "I'm very willing to be naughty to you." "That won't do." Myra pressed her slender and beautiful index finger against Noah's forehead and pushed Noah's face away. She was fuming with anger as she spoke. "I already said I don't want it, and you're still being naughty. I'll get angry." "You'll really get angry?" Noah raised an eyebrow and smiled faintly. His hand also moved back and forth on Myra's body. "Then I'll have to be naughty all the time." Feeling Noah's naughty hand, Myra blushed and slapped it away. She glared fiercely at Noah, but that appearance was cute no matter how one looked at it. "I'll really get angry. That's why I have to be naughty all the time," Noah said matter-of-factly. "Who asked Myra to be so cute when she's angry?" Hearing this, Myra's cheeks puffed up more and more, and a trace of indignation appeared in her hazy eyes. However, she didn't resist Noah's naughty hands anymore. Instead, she snuggled in Noah's arms and let him play his naughty tricks. "In the past, when I wanted to hear you say that, you wouldn't say it." Of course, Myra was referring to what happened 2 years ago before Noah left this world. Back then, Noah had met Myra, Elfman, and Lisanna in that small village. After some trouble, the 3 siblings, who had nowhere else to go, were led to Fairy Tale. Before that, Myra had always felt guilty towards Elfman and Lisanna. After all, Myra had always thought that she was the one who had caused Elfman and Lisanna to fall to such a state. If it weren't for the fact that they had run into a church where demons were causing trouble and were possessed by them, they wouldn't have been chased away by others. If they hadn't been chased away, Elfman and Lisanna wouldn't have had to live a homeless life with Myra. That was what Myra thought until she met Noah. Therefore, meeting Noah and the fact that her fate had changed because of Noah made Myra's guilt towards her siblings turn into gratitude towards Noah. Furthermore, she was still a child at the time, and because of her ignorance towards relationships, it was easy for her to become diligent and engraved in her heart. Thus, after spending some time together, Myra gradually became attracted to Noah. If not for this, as one of the few geniuses in Fairy Tale, who had become an S-rank archmage before reaching adulthood, Myra might not have taken a fancy to Noah. However, the truth was the truth. Myra had indeed fallen in love with Noah when she was young. Myra must have always wanted to hear Noah's affirmation of a woman's charm since she was young. Understanding this, Noah suddenly felt a strong sense of pity for Myra. "I'm sorry." Driven by such emotions, Noah's hand that was playing tricks on Myra turned to embrace her slender waist, and he hugged her tightly. "I've made you wait for so long." Myra reluctantly went along with Noah's strength and hugged Noah tightly, revealing her usual gentle and enchanting smile. "It's all right." After saying that, Myra raised her hand and looked at the engagement ring on her finger with a blissful smile. "It doesn't matter anymore." That's right, it didn't matter anymore. After all, the waiting had finally paid off. That was why Myra didn't have any regrets, nor did she complain. There was only endless satisfaction. This made Noah's heart melt, and he smiled. "Ugh." Lisanna turned around and let out a sleep-talking sound. Big brother Noah and Myra looked at each other and smiled. Hugging Myra and Lisanna tightly, Noah kissed his 2 fiancés' foreheads again, enjoying the rare moment of peace. Chapter 424. Why is it so late? It doesn't make sense. Myra-chan and Lisanna-chan aren't here. Where did they go? There's never been 2 people like this before. Are they not here yet? I'm hungry. In the hall on the first floor of Fairy Tale, some of the idlers in the guild were gathered together. However, almost everyone was sighing, whispering, and even brazenly making a ruckus. This was because, until now, the two most famous girls in fairy tale, had not arrived yet. This was indeed something that had never happened before. In the past, even if something happened, at least one of them would be present. But today, Mira and Lisanna were not present, which made many people complain. Mira and Lisanna's roles in fairy tale were similar to that of waiters. Occasionally, they would help Makarov with the guild's affairs and miscellaneous tasks. They could be said to be two indispensable members of the guild. Now that they suddenly did not come, even if there were no guild affairs and chores to be done, the guild members who were waiting for the beautiful and cute girls to serve them food and drink also lost their energy. Under such circumstances, Noah came down from upstairs. When they saw Noah, many of the magic shooter's spirits were lifted, and they started to shout. "Yo, Noah, where are your two fiancés? Why haven't they come yet? We're all hungry. And we can't order any wine. I always feel so lonely. Hurry up and call your two fiancés over." "Yes, yes." Hearing the teasing voices from his companions, Noah could not help but feel guilty. Could he tell them that the two fiancés they were talking about were now lying in Noah's room to rest because they were tormented by Noah last night? Presumably, in the next moment, Noah would be surrounded by all the male members who were envious of him, and would be full of resentment and make him drunk again. When he thought of this, Noah's head that was faintly aching from the hangover felt dizzy again, and he could not help but speak loudly. "You still say that the banquet was so lively yesterday, but in the end, the ones who served tea were Mira and Lisanna. Who knows how tired they are now?" Saying such a flawless lie, Noah confidently announced. "Today, Mira and Lisanna asked for leave. I will let them rest to the extent that they will not wake up to work until tomorrow. So, what you want to eat and drink, you'd better think of it yourself." When these words came out, there was an uproar. "Don't. Noah. You can't be so cruel. Although she is your fiancée, she is also our guild signature girl." "My Mira sauce, what? Mira sauce. She is already someone else's fiancée. Heavens. I don't have the motivation to work today." "Yes, yes." Suddenly, a group of fellows who were not serious all day began to make a racket. Their cries were miserable. Those who did not know would definitely think that someone in their family had died, causing many onlookers to look at them with disdain. Ignoring the noise of the people around him, Noah walked into the hall, looked around, and fixed his gaze in one direction. There, Alusha had arrived early and was sitting in front of a table. She was not wearing her usual armor, but an ordinary inner shirt and a blue pleated skirt. This might have been strange in the past, but ever since the collapse of the Paradise Tower, Zio, Simon, Wooly, and Miriana regained their freedom and went out to travel, Alusha no longer often showed up in armor. Occasionally, she would be like this, going into battle lightly. However, at this moment, Alusha was seriously flipping through a book. This scene surprised Noah. Alusha is reading a book. This is really rare. With this thought, Noah quietly walked behind Alusha and looked at the book in front of her through Alusha. When he confirmed the content of the book, his expression was strange. This was because Alusha was not flipping through a book, but a magazine. It was a magazine that displayed beautiful wedding dresses on almost every page. In other words, Alusha was so focused that she did not even notice Noah approaching her from behind. What she was looking at was not profound knowledge, but just wedding dresses. This made Noah recall Alusha's behavior when Mira and Lisanna announced their engagement to him yesterday. That strange look proved that Alusha did not seem to have any immunity to the word marriage. In addition, Alusha was still looking at the wedding dresses. Was it for Mira and Lisanna's reference? Noah clearly said yesterday that he was only temporarily engaged with Mira and Lisanna, and would not get married immediately. Therefore, Alusha should not be looking at it for Mira and Lisanna's reference. Then, there was only one answer. Alusha seemed to have a strong interest in marriage. Could it be that she was looking forward to getting married? Or, like Lisanna, she was looking forward to the scene of her being a bride? Could Alusha be so cute? At this moment, Noah resisted the urge to laugh and patted Alusha's shoulder. Whoa! Noah just patted her lightly, but Alusha immediately screamed as if she had met a ghost. She jumped up and turned her head, looking at Noah with a lingering fear. Noah! Noah! It's me. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched. Why do you have such a big reaction? No, nothing. Alusha shook her head exaggeratedly. It's really nothing. Is it? Noah looked at Alusha with a faint smile. But not only is your expression not convincing at all, it makes your behavior very suspicious. It's nothing like that. Alusha's face tightened, as if she wanted to return to her usual expression. However, she did not know if it was because she was too nervous, but her expression was stiff. I'm still the same as usual. You don't even believe your own words, right? Noah glanced at the wedding dress magazine on the table and asked amusedly. Are you looking at wedding dresses? No. This time, not only Alusha's expression, but even her tone became stiff. Just casually looking. Casually looking. Noah continued to laugh, and his laughter became more and more uncontrollable. Yes. Alusha continued to pretend, but she was a little guilty. Just as Noah and Alusha continued to be in a stalemate, the door of the guild opened. Everyone. Good morning. In the cheerful greeting, Lucy walked in from outside. Lucy. Alusha seemed to have seen her savior, and quickly changed the topic to Lucy. Are you alone? Yes, Naz and Grace seem to be still sleeping because they drank at the banquet yesterday. Lucy walked in from outside, looked around, and made such a puzzled voice. There seemed to be fewer people today. After Lucy said this, Noah and Alusha also noticed this. It seems to be a lot fewer than usual. Alusha finally recovered her usual heroic appearance, glanced around, and frowned. Yesterday, we were still having a banquet here. Today, Mira and Lisanna are not here. Without the consent of the two people appointed by the president, even if we accept the mission, we can't immediately execute it. Where did everyone go? Could it be that like Naz and Gray, they were all drunk yesterday? Lucy raised this speculation. So, everyone is resting at home. Maybe that's the case. Noah narrowed his eyes, and a trace of thoughtfulness gradually appeared in his eyes. But I don't know why, I always feel that it's not the case. When this sentence fell from Noah's mouth, a voice full of arrogance sounded from the second floor. Isn't that good? Hearing this voice, Noah paused, then raised his head and looked at the second floor. The next moment, a man in a fur collar, leaning his hand against the railing on the second floor and looking at Noah with an extremely unruly expression was imprinted in Noah's eyes. Seeing this person, Alusha's frown deepened, Lucy's expression became a little stiff, and even the noise in the guild disappeared. Because that's Lax's. Chapter 425. The guild, which had been extremely noisy just a second ago, suddenly seemed to have been cut off by someone, and the noise disappeared without a trace. Every guild member obediently shut their mouths when Lax's appeared. This was not out of respect for Lax's, it was just a subconscious action. After all, to the members of Fairy Tale, Lax's may more or less represent the feeling of a comrade, but more of the feeling of danger. Everyone felt that Lax's was very dangerous. It was like a class full of obedient students suddenly having a delinquent in all aspects appear out of nowhere. Everyone felt that this person was dangerous, not because this person would hurt them, but because they did not want to interact with such a person and get involved in unnecessary trouble. Thus, under normal circumstances, when Laxas appeared, other than a few people, no one would open their mouth to speak unless something unexpected happened. Thus, under such circumstances, the only one present who would fearlessly confront Laxas, other than Noah, was Alusha. Laxas. Alusha took a step forward, her sharp eyes staring at Laxas, who was leaning against the railing on the second floor. What do you mean by that? This sentence again. Do you have to ask me what I mean every time I speak before you understand? Laxas glanced at Alusha, a trace of mockery appearing in his eyes. It's too early for a mere Alusha to question me. What did you say? Alusha did not expect Laxas to find fault with her the moment he opened his mouth, her delicate face showing traces of anger. Just as she was about to say something, she was stopped by Noah. Then do I have the right to question you? Noah put one hand on Alusha's shoulder, his gaze had already moved to Laxas. Laxas, what did you mean by that sentence just now? TSK, you haven't even become the guild leader and you're already putting on airs. As if deliberately going against Noah, Laxas's tone became even more unruly, even his eyes became irritable. My dear brother, of all people, why did you have to learn from that old man? All day long, you care about those weak people who don't need to exist, trash. If they disappear, then they disappear, is there a need to pay special attention to them? You. Understanding Laxas's meaning, the anger on Alusha's face became more and more intense. Really bad. Even Lucy could not help but let out such a mutter, her face full of resistance towards Laxas. That kind of person, why is his companion in the guild? Regarding Alusha and Lucy's words, Noah's gaze, he was still staring closely at Laxas, his eyes. Intuition told Noah that this matter was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. At the beginning, didn't you not notice that those weak people who weren't here didn't come today? That's enough to prove that the weak don't need to have any sense of existence, right? Laxas's mouth gradually curved into a happy arc. It seemed that only Noah was left in his eyes. Don't bother with those trash who only drag us down, it's better to just let all those useless people in the guild disappear. Saying such a sentence, Laxas's gaze swept across everyone below. Those who met Laxas's gaze all lowered their heads. Including Lucy, except for Noah and Alusha, no one present dared to look at Laxas. Laxas curled his lips in boredom and made such a declaration. Fairy tale does not need weaklings. You will understand. Leaving this sentence, Laxas turned around and left everyone's sight. It was only at this time that his companions in the guild began to whisper. What, that guy, that's really annoying. Why did that guy have to be an S-rank magic shooter, and the grandson of the guild leader? That's right. Fortunately, the next guild leader is Noah, otherwise, I wouldn't want to join a guild that was inherited by that guy. I feel the same. Similar conversations like this began to ring out from the surrounding crowd. However, probably because Laxas had not gone far, and they were worried that Laxas would hear them, the guild members lowered their voices. But Noah, Alusha, and Lucy still heard it clearly. In this regard, Lucy expressed her agreement. That kind of inhumane guy as the guild leader, I really can't imagine. Lucy said to Noah excitedly. Noah, you must not lose to that kind of guy, let that kind of guy become the guild leader. The guild leader already said yesterday that the next guild leader of Fairy Tale is Noah, since the guild leader said so, most likely, it will not change. Alusha calmed down and stared in the direction that Laxas had left. It's just that I have an ominous feeling. Hearing this, Noah fell silent. Because, in Noah's heart, he had the same feeling. Don't bother about that guy. Lucy, on the other hand, had been very indignant. She sat down, and when she saw the wedding dress magazine on the table, she immediately picked it up out of curiosity. Isn't this a wedding dress? Could it be that Noah is choosing a wedding dress for Mira and Lasana's wedding in the future? But the wedding date hasn't been set yet, right? No, 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 it's not like that. The serious expression on Alusha's face collapsed in an instant. She blushed and stuttered. Lucy was stunned. So, you're saying that it's not Noah who's watching, but you, Alusha. Ahahaha, Noah shook his head when he saw that the atmosphere in the guild had returned to normal. Hopefully, I'm just overthinking things. The next day, in Noah's room, Noah, who had just gotten up, hugged the shoulders of Mira and Lisanna, who were chatting in their own room, and lay down. Mira and Lisanna snuggled up in Noah's arms as they flipped through a magazine in front of Noah, conversing with each other with relish. This one is so beautiful. Really? I like this one better. Mira and Lisanna were flipping through the magazine with gusto. It was the same one that Alusha had been reading yesterday. Because she bumped into Lucy when she went downstairs and Lucy casually mentioned this matter, Lisanna, who was looking forward to being a bride, borrowed the magazine from the uncomfortable Alusha and took it out to talk about it with Mira during her free time. Not only did they discuss it with each other, but they also asked Noah about the wedding dress they liked. Hey, big brother Noah. Lisanna pointed at one of the wedding dresses in the magazine and asked excitedly. What do you think of me wearing this on our wedding day? I like this one. It was rare for Mira to be as stubborn as Lisanna when it came to wedding dresses. She pointed at a wedding dress on the other side. Noah, what do you think? I think they all look good. Noah naturally understood that his two fiancés were so enthusiastic because they could marry him. Thus, Noah showed sufficient attention. But I think Mira looks better in this one. As for Lisanna, I think she'll look better in this one. Seeing that Noah was paying so much attention to the wedding dress, Mira and Lisanna seemed to be very happy. Even their spirits seemed to have risen. Noah, look at this one. Big brother Noah, look at this one too. See if it suits me. Thus, the man and the two women began chatting about the wedding dresses. The smiles on Mira and Lisanna's faces never disappeared. Even the surrounding atmosphere became a little warm. Under such circumstances, Mira and Lisanna even forgot that they had to go downstairs to work. One had to know that Mira and Lisanna did not go to the guild yesterday at Noah's request. Now, there must be many people looking forward to Mira and Lisanna's appearance. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Noah. At that moment, a hurried voice sounded from outside the door. The door to Noah's room was pushed open. Under the shocked gazes of Noah, Mira, and Lisanna, Alusha quickly walked into the room and said with a solemn expression. Something happened. Chapter 426. Grandpa. Leading Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha downstairs, Noah immediately saw Makarov sitting at the bar. Then, he noticed the strange atmosphere that pervaded Fairy Tale. At this moment, the number of people in the guild could only be described as pitiful. Noah counted and found that there were only a dozen or so people in the guild. This was simply inconceivable to Fairy Tale. After all, even though Fairy Tale didn't take in as many members as Phantom Lord did, and even opened up branches everywhere and had all kinds of people in the guild, as the number one guild in the kingdom of Fiore, Fairy Tale had at least a few hundred members, if not 1,000. And yet, there were only a dozen or so people in the guild. Wasn't this inconceivable? With yesterday's event still fresh in his mind, Noah exchanged glances with Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha before walking towards Makarov, who was sitting at the bar. Anyone could see how dangerous Makarov was sitting at the bar. That's right. It was dangerous. At this moment, the mana belonging to the 10 great saint archmages that could shake space revolved around Makarov's body in an extremely obscure manner, making the space around Makarov seem to have suddenly become heavier and extremely heavy. As for Makarov, he lowered his head and silently looked at the entire guild. His aged eyes flickered with barely detectable rage and irritation. None of the remaining members of the dozen or so guilds dared to open their mouths, causing the atmosphere to become strangely quiet. However, no one would blame Makarov. It was only natural for Makarov to behave this way. To Makarov, the members of Fairy Tale were almost all his children, and the guild was Makarov's home. His children's whereabouts were unknown, and the originally lively home had become extremely quiet. It was already very good that Makarov didn't fly into a rage on the spot. But even so, Makarov still fell into a state where he could explode at the slightest provocation. The heavy magic that pervaded his body made Mira and Alusha, the 2 active S-ranked archmages, unable to breathe. Lisana's beautiful face paled, and she almost knelt on the ground. This was the magic of one of the 10 Saint Magi. It had to be known that Makarov's ranking among the 10 great Saint Magi was considered to be near the top. In this way, even if Makarov didn't completely detonate his magic, the trace of magic that leaked out was enough to intimidate most S-ranked archmages. Therefore, other than Noah, no one else was able to remain calm in the face of Makarov's magic power that seemed to explode around him. Raising his hand, Noah gently hugged the pale-faced Lisana, and then braved the magic that was rolling out from Makarov's body and came in front of Makarov. "Grandfather, Noah." Makarov didn't even raise his head as he spoke with a gloomy expression. "Is there any problem on your side?" "Mira, Lisana, and I are all fine." Noah shook his head. However, Mira and Lisana just contacted home and found that Elfman wasn't around. "I'm afraid that he's also missing." "Even Elfman is missing." Makarov's expression grew more and more unsightly. What in the world happened? What had happened? He believed that no one present didn't want to know the answer. And Noah finally confirmed that the ominous feeling he and Alusha had was indeed true. Since yesterday, the members of Fairy Tale had been disappearing one after another, and there was no news of their whereabouts. It wasn't just Elfman. Naz, Gray, Hubby, and Lucy, Lebby, Kana, and the others who had shown their faces in the guild had all disappeared without a trace. Sensing that something was wrong, Makarov immediately went to the guild and sent people to check the houses of the members who hadn't shown up. In the end, he couldn't find a single person at home. In other words, just like yesterday, the Fairy Tale Guild had lost a few members today. Moreover, it was a crushing loss, to the point that there were only a dozen or so members left. Why would so many members of Fairy Tale suddenly disappear for no reason? Even a fool could guess that something had happened. Brother Elfman, and everyone. Under such circumstances, Lisana worriedly asked the question that everyone was concerned about. There shouldn't be anything wrong, right? Everyone present was silent. This was because no one could give a 100% answer to this question. Who in the world is it? Alusha clenched her fists tightly. A strong light bloomed from her body, and she changed into her usual armor, revealing an extremely dangerous expression. Who on earth is targeting Fairy Tale? Hearing Alusha's angry words, Mira just hugged Lisana tightly and fell into silence. Noah once again looked around the entire guild. Looking at the scene where there were only a dozen people left, his eyes grew colder and colder. Originally, I thought that it was already very rare for a Phantom Lord to stand up and die, but I didn't expect that in this world, there would never be a lack of people who had lived for too long. Could it be that if it was just a Phantom Lord, there would be no way for the whole world to know the consequences of provoking Fairy Tale? Moreover, this time, it wasn't as simple as touching the guild's buildings, but directly touching the people in Fairy Tale. Not to mention Noah, even Makarov wouldn't let this matter rest. But who else would want to provoke the Fairy Tale? In such a heavy atmosphere, an arrogant laugh suddenly rang out. Oh! So many of them have disappeared. Hearing this, everyone raised their heads and looked at the second floor of the guild building. Soon after, everyone's expression changed. A bunch of weak and pitiful people, disappearing just like that makes the whole guild much more pleasing to the eye, Laxus said arrogantly under everyone's gazes. Why don't we just ignore them? Old man. Laxus. Makarov glared at Laxus, the veins on his temples bulging as he growled. Are you trying to make me angry? You. In a situation where he couldn't even ensure the safety of his companions, Laxus still dared to provoke him. Alusha couldn't take it anymore. Mira and Lisanna also glared at Laxus, their faces filled with malice. Laxus. Only Noah stared at Laxus's arrogant face. The coldness in his eyes made Mira and the others' hearts palpitate. This matter can't have anything to do with you, right? Everyone suddenly fell silent. Makarov, Alusha, Mira, Lisanna, and the others, who were originally furious, were all shocked by Noah's sudden words. What did Noah mean? Was he suspecting Laxus? Facing Noah's cold gaze, the smile on Laxus's face grew wider and wider, but there wasn't a single trace of a smile in his eyes. Who knows? Seeing that Laxus didn't deny it, the remaining people in the guild looked at each other. Laxus. Makarov said in a low voice with a heavy expression. You should know that this is not a joke, right? Joke? Laxus glanced at Makarov and sneered. Unfortunately, I've never joked. After saying that, Laxus completely ignored everyone present. He didn't leave any explanation, nor did he make any obvious denial. Just like that, he turned around and left. Seeing this, everyone fell silent. Chapter 427. Seeing Laxus's figure disappear in the direction of the second floor, the remaining members of Fairy Tale began to whisper to each other. It can't really be Laxus, right? It can't be, right? But, hasn't that guy always hated the people in the guild? Moreover, the guild leader has already announced that Noah will be the next leader of Fairy Tale. Hasn't Laxus always wanted to inherit this guild? It's not impossible for him to fly into a rage out of humiliation and do something like that, right? Now that you mention it, all of a sudden, the remaining members of the guild began to speculate one after another, echoing throughout the entire guild. Big Brother Noah, Lisanna said hesitantly. Is it really Laxus? Even Laxus wouldn't do something like that, right? Mira said somewhat gloomily. We're all companions, why are you suspecting Laxus? Even Alusha couldn't seem to believe that Laxus was related to the disappearance of the members of the guild who hadn't arrived yet, so she asked Noah. Did you find out anything? Makarov also looked at Noah, his eyes filled with heartache and an unprecedented seriousness. If the disappearance of the members of the guild really had something to do with Laxus, then as Laxus's grandfather, Makarov felt that he had to take responsibility for everything. Facing the gazes of the crowd, Noah frowned and waved his hand. Don't worry, I'm just testing Laxus. Although I have my suspicions, I haven't really found out what Laxus has done. Hearing this, Makarov breathed a sigh of relief, and the expressions of the members of the guild also softened imperceptibly. Seeing this scene, Noah couldn't help but smile bitterly. Noah didn't say anything. Although he hadn't found out what Laxus had done, after the probing and understanding of Laxus, Noah still felt that Laxus was still a suspect. After all, Laxus's mentality was abnormally twisted. After knowing that Noah would become the next guild leader of Fairy Tale, it was possible that he would do something irrational. Moreover, Laxus had always hated the so-called weaklings. The members of the guild who had gone missing were simply a thorn in his side to him. Who knew if he would think of getting rid of them? If it was Laxus, it wasn't impossible for him to do something like that. With such a heavy thought, Noah shook his head and turned to the remaining members of the guild. The most important thing right now is to find the whereabouts of the missing people as soon as possible. Let's move out together and search Magnolia first. After all, this phenomenon only started yesterday. Even if someone has captured our companions, they won't be able to transport them anywhere in a day. With that said, Noah looked around at everyone present. Remember, no matter what the existence that can make our companions go missing is, since even Naz, Gray, and Elfman can't resist, it's best that we don't act alone. At least form a team of 5, understand? Got it. The members of the guild nodded and formed their own teams. Then, they left the guild and went to Magnolia to search for their companions' whereabouts. In the blink of an eye, only Noah, Mira, Lisanna, Alusha, and Makarov were left in the guild. No. There was still one person left. That. The somewhat bashful young girl spoke with a hint of panic in her voice. What should I do? Noah only just noticed that there was another person present. When he saw the person's full appearance, he was surprised. Julian. You're here too. Yes. Seeing Noah's gaze turn to him, Julian's head shrank back as if he was still a little afraid. But unlike last time, he mustered up his courage. Julian wants to help, but he doesn't know what to do. Noah, Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Julian had just joined Fairy Tale not long ago, so he wasn't familiar with many of the people in Fairy Tale. Therefore, even if he wanted to help, Julian, who had yet to remember the faces of everyone in Fairy Tale, couldn't help at all. Julian. Makarov stepped forward. Where's Gadjalu? Is Gadjalu missing as well? Julian doesn't know. Mr. Gadjalu doesn't often interact with others. The Aqua girl seemed to have finally found something she could do, and her expression became a little excited. Julian, try to get in touch with Mr. Gadjalu. Okay. Makarov nodded heavily. I'll have to trouble you. Yes. After replying, Zhu Bian's body directly turned into water and sprinkled on the ground, disappearing without a trace. Looking at the place where Julian disappeared, Makarov's expression became uncertain. Laxes, is it really you? Mira, Lisanna, Alusha, and the others chose to keep quiet, trying not to provoke Makarov. Grandpa. Only Noah said to Makarov after sighing. Let's go and see if there are any clues. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the guild. Go. Makarov reacted and waved his hand decisively. I'm enough here. At the very least, I can activate the defense system you left behind. So, at least, nothing will happen here. Noah, Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha nodded one after another, then they looked at each other and walked out of the guild. As soon as they came out of the guild, Alusha immediately asked. Where should we start looking now? Let's go to Naz, Gray, and Lucy's house first. Noah answered without hesitation. Obviously, he already had an idea. Naz and Gray were at home yesterday. Lucy also stayed in the guild until night time before leaving. If they were really taken away by someone, then it's very likely that they were taken away at home. Let's go to their house and take a look. Maybe we can find some clues. Then let's go home too. Mira quickly said. Elfman may also be taken away at home. We may also find some clues at home. You guys. Noah hesitated. If it's just the two of you, will it be okay? Brother Noah, don't worry. Lisanna patted her full chest and pretended to be cheerful. I won't mention it for now. You know what Sister Mira is like when she's serious. With Sister Mira, we'll be fine. That's true. Alusha nodded in agreement. With Mira around, at least they won't disappear without a sound like Naz and the others. Hearing that, Noah lowered his head and muttered to himself for a while. After a while, he nodded reluctantly. Then, be careful. If you find anything, go back to the guild first. We'll gather there. Okay. The two nodded at the same time, turned around, and walked quickly in the direction of their houses. Then whose house should we go to first? Alusha looked at Noah. The closest house to here is Naz and Habi's house. It's on the other side of the forest. Let's go to Lucy's house first. Noah had a different opinion. Lucy only left the guild last night. It's very likely that she went missing later than Naz and Gray. If there are any clues left behind, it's only one night. If it's not done by someone, it won't be easy to eliminate the clues. So, let's start looking from there. Understood. Alyssa said in a strong and powerful voice. Her voice was filled with an extremely strong sense of self. If someone took them away, I'll let them know the consequences of stepping on the fairy tale's bottom line. Noah smiled indifferently and raised his head to look at the sky. The weather today was cloudy. The sky was always gray and covered by thick layers of dark clouds. It was like the calm before the storm, bringing with it a sense of oppression that made one's heart tremble. Chapter 428. In the corner of Magnolia, there was a river. Compared to Noah's secret base, which was the river in the forest, this river was not only much wider, but also much more lively. Because, in this river, from time to time, a boat would appear and pass by every place along the river. Lucy's house was on the opposite side of the river. It was a very ordinary house. According to Lucy herself, although this house was very ordinary, there was nothing wrong with it. Most importantly, the monthly rent was only 70,000 J, which was quite cost-effective. Therefore, when Lucy found out about this place, she did not hesitate to rent it. This reason, more or less, made people want to cry. However, compared to the girls' dormitory and fairy tale, Lucy still preferred this house. The reason was the same as the previous one, the problem of rent. The girls' dormitory and fairy tale costs 100,000 J per month, but this house only costs 70,000 J per month. For Lucy, this could be considered as saving a lot of money. As a member of the same team, Alusha often went in and out of Lucy's house, so she was quite familiar with Lucy's house. Therefore, under Alusha's lead, Noah speechlessly climbed into Lucy's house from the direction of the window. From this choice, Noah saw a fact. That is, when Alusha enters Lucy's house, she usually does not go through the front door. No, it should not only be Alusha, it is very likely that even Naz, Gray and the others are the same, who knows. While he silently felt sad for Lucy in his heart, Noah's attention was attracted by everything that was imprinted on his senses in the next moment. This was an extremely ordinary room. The decoration of the room was not very luxurious, and it was full of a homey atmosphere, making people unable to tell that this was a place where a rich young lady lived. However, there was indeed a rich young lady living in this place. It was obvious that the room belonged to a young girl. Even the smell in the air was fragrant, making one's mind feel comfortable. The only factors that made people feel comfortable were the air and decoration in the room. However, there were also factors that made people feel bad. Noah was sure that it was definitely a bad factor that did not exist before last night. It was precisely this terrible factor that attracted Noah's attention. Noah's nerves instantly tensed up. He closed his eyes and activated his sensing ability. Like tentacles, it extended to the surroundings and enveloped Lucy's entire room. At this time, Noah could clearly feel the existence of traces of strange mana. It was a demonic power that seemed to have just emerged from some abyss, carrying an extremely dense aura of evil and darkness. Noah had only ever felt such evil and dark magic from one person. The guild leader of the Phantom Lord, Joseph. Of course, Noah meant that the nature of the evil and dark mana was identical to Joseph's, not that the mana was identical to Joseph's. Unlike Joseph's, the traces of evil and dark mana that permeated Lucy's room seemed to be purer, and the aura inside was completely different from Joseph's. Therefore, the owner of these traces of evil and dark mana should be somewhat similar to Joseph in some aspects. For example, character. For example, magic. In short, this was definitely not the mana left behind by Lucy. And naturally, such mana could not have been left behind by Laxus. It seemed that, as Noah had guessed, the reason why Lucy and her party disappeared was entirely because someone had attacked them. This person should not be Laxus. At least, it would definitely not be Laxus himself. Although Laxus's mana was also very special, that was because Laxus was a Dragon Slayer magic shooter. Like Naz, Gadjalu, and Wendy, he had unique and extremely destructive mana. And Laxus's mana was definitely not such dark and evil mana. This made Noah frown involuntarily. What's wrong? Alusha was just about to search Lucy's room when she caught a glimpse of Noah, who was frowning with his eyes closed, and asked suspiciously. Did you find anything? I found some residual mana. Noah did not hide it. He opened his eyes and spoke of his speculation. That's not Lucy's mana, nor is it the mana of anyone I know. You mean? Alusha's expression froze. Did someone really invade Lucy's room and take her away? As far as I'm concerned, this is the most likely possibility. Noah's brows were still tightly knitted. It's just that I can only find that the residual mana in the air here has a very evil and dark nature. Other than that, I can't get any clues. No, you've already got a very important clue. Alusha said loudly. At least, you've helped us confirm that someone is indeed attacking Fairy Tale and almost all of our guild's members have been taken away. Alusha said in a deep voice as she moved her arms that were wrapped in armor. Since you can detect the residual mana here, can you detect where the owner of the mana is? No. Noah shook his head. The other party must have used magic to capture Lucy, leaving traces of magic in this room, and then left. I can only feel the remnants of this strange magic in this room, and there's no trace of it anywhere else. After saying that, Noah looked at Alusha's heavy expression and softly comforted her. Even so, I've already remembered the other party's mana aura. As long as the owner of this mana appears in front of me again, I'll definitely be able to discover his true identity. Unless he can change his own aura, otherwise, he won't be able to hide it. That's good. Alusha breathed a sigh of relief. Then let's continue looking for clues. Noah nodded and went to Lucy's room with Alusha. Just as Noah and Alusha were making their way to Lucy's house, Mira and Lisanna were blocked on their way to their own house. Mira pulled Lisanna to her side as if she was protecting her. She repeatedly swept her gaze at the person blocking her way with a sorrowful expression on her face. Could it really be you guys? Are you the ones who kidnapped Big Brother Elfie and everyone in the guild? Lisanna shouted angrily. Hurry up and let everyone go. Thor's knights. The ones blocking Mira and Lisanna's way were none other than Rax's personal guards, the Thor Order. With Freed in the lead, Bikesro, Iba, and Jerlin stood on either side of him. The three of them were only looking at Mira, as if they were intentionally ignoring Lisanna's existence. Mira, Jenny. Lisanna. Alba, who was holding a fan and covering the lower half of her face, called out. You'd better come with us obediently. Laxus wants us to take you there. Bikesro stuck his tongue out and raised his hands in an exaggerated manner. If you don't listen to me obediently, then I can only let my baby play with you. I suggest you don't resist. We don't want to fight you. Freed looked up and stared at Mira. Even if the legendary demon kin were to fight against us, even if they could win, you don't have the confidence to protect your sister in battle, do you? Myra's expression changed slightly. Despicable bastard. Lisanna said angrily. Fight Sister Mira if you dare. Apologies, we only follow Laxus's orders. Freed's expression didn't change. In order to carry out Laxus's orders, we have no choice but to resort to despicable means. What's your goal? Mira bit her lip. What's your goal? You're wrong, Mira Jenny of the Demon King. Albarglin chuckled. We don't have a goal from the beginning. Bikesrow laughed strangely. Our goal is to help Laxus, and Laxus only has one goal. Freed turned around, as if he knew that Mira wouldn't resist anymore. The throne of the next guild master of Fairy Tale. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.